Good evening, everyone, committee members, presenters, and the public who might be watching. This is TSPLOST 2023 presentation night number 8, our second one of this week. Welcome to tonight's show. We have a great lineup today. Let's see. Oh, that's the wrong agenda. I will pull. I'm sorry. I had it. Now I got to pull it back up. Oh, that was last night's.
You need me to launch it, or you got it?
I have it.
Okay.
Let's see, where did it go? Agenda package. And I'm going to open this here and I can share my screen. Okay. So we've got some more projects coming from East Athens and North Athens. Transit will be in the house tonight. Welcome to Transit and some other neighborhood projects. So before we get to our presentations, let's take a look at the minutes. And last night we did take a vote if you were not here. And we did vote to do alternates or to request alternates from our presenters, and the alternates are absolutely optional. Certainly some projects, because of their nature, are not really a good candidate for an alternate. They can't be phased or they can't really come down in scale. So we are merely inviting our presenters, if they would like to present an alternate version of that project, to do that to us, to do that for us. And they can indicate whether they would like for us to consider the alternate only or the alternate and the original. Or maybe they just want us to consider just the original project and they won't submit an alternate. Are there any comments or corrections for the minutes?
Yes, I have one correction or change to recommend on the second page of the notes of the minutes. In the third, I guess what I'll describe as a paragraph under discussion, the last, second paragraph, last sentence, it says the motion carried with 12 in favor and 3 not in favor. Could not in favor be changed to against?
Sorry. Yeah, sure. I don't have that doesn't make a difference to me. It's just different wording to me, but I'm not trying to be snarky or anything. It's fine with me.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
even if you were, it's fine, but not in favor just doesn't register as a vote structure, right, against us. That's why I make the suggestion.
Sure. Probably really should reword it if you're all right with it. Say 12 yes and 3 no.
That would also be appropriate.
Okay. No, that's a good catch. That should be worded differently.
Thank you, Travis.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make that change.
Additional corrections, comments?
I guess I have a question that refers to last night's vote. When we ask people to present an alternate project, does that include the full presentation, or are they just doing, they just give us a piece of paper that describes something different?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no way we could schedule in the time y'all have to get presentations from them. We have 2 nights to discuss the submissions of those, but not for presentations.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, but I figured I'd give it a sanity check here.
Good question.
That is a good question. Thank you, Jeff, for checking in about that. All right, if there are no other corrections to the minutes, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes with the correction for the language to say 12 yes and 3 no. Can I
I'll
get a
make
motion?
the motion. So moved.
All right, so the Jeff is a first.
I'll
Can I get a
second.
second? And who, sorry, my screen is small. Who seconded?
John, and somebody
John
else.
seconded.
I don't know who else. Doesn't matter to me who gets the credit for the second.
Okay, well, John, you can have that credit. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. The minutes have been passed. And we'll have our first presenters come up. Just get my attachment up, but it is project number 66, Hawthorne Avenue traffic safety and bike ped improvements. Do we have our presenter here tonight?
Yes.
All right. Do you need us to pedal your presentation, or are you going to handle it?
You could pedal it. That'd be fantastic.
All right, Keith, if you would just let me, tell me, say next or whenever you want me to change slides.
Okay.
All right, you're a go.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here this evening and joining me with this presentation. I'm looking at for the TSPLOST 2023 Hawthorne Avenue traffic safety and some bike pedestrian improvements. Next slide. So Hawthorne Avenue is classified as a minor arterial road. It's a primary connector between two major state highway corridors, SR 129, Prince Avenue / Jefferson Highway, SR 78, West Broad, and Atlanta Highway. Hawthorne Avenue is one of the most next slide. Hawthorne Avenue is one of the most crash-prone local roads here in Clarke County. It's never gone to comprehensive analysis. Granted, there are similar thoroughfares, 3 and 4 lanes, changed a few times, 6 signaled intersections, narrow bike lanes seldom utilized, often badly backed up and congested. Right in front of our store. When not congested, auto traffic regularly dangerously exceeds the speed. And as you can see on the diagram to the right-hand side, there is highlighted all the different accidents. It's also Hawthorne Avenue.
I'm so sorry. We are having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. So I think there's a little bit of quality loss that we can work through. But could you, I think your last words in your sentence are kind of trailing off. So if there's any way you can move closer to your microphone, that might help. Of course, committee members, it does look like he's reading off the slides. So that's very helpful to be able to read where we don't hear. I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. So I was talking about the Hawthorne Avenue being very congested. It's changed lanes a few times. Narrow bike lanes really seldom used. It's congested. But not congested, traffic does exceed the speed limit. Many wrecks out here right in front of our store floor. Hawthorne Avenue is busy. And if you look to the right in that diagram, there is Hawthorne Avenue highlighted in pink, and it has all the different incidents on that road. Go to the next slide. So as we all know, it's a busy commercial corridor. Many minority-owned small business, grocery store, a couple medical offices, housing community, very active church on the corner, and major amenities in Bishop Park and the YMCA brings a lot of traffic to road, including those that come to Barron's Rental Center. And so dense walkable neighborhoods is also part of what we have. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. So you've got normal town, middle class family homes, Columbia, Brookside, fixed income, private housing right across the road from us. Brooklyn, traditionally African American, single family neighborhood. Few pedestrians utilize Hawthorne. Only one side includes a complete sidewalk, and distance is pretty far between them. Even that store here, we have it on our side. Of course, other some danger for pedestrians to walk up and down that road when there's so much traffic that goes on. This project will allow nearby residents greater access to different things that are going on the street, avoid congestion issues, greatly improving safety and quality for everybody. So it is imperative that any appropriate project should be targeted. Next slide. So part of this also is closing the equity gap. It is a major corridor through traditional African American community. Hawthorne Avenue has been overlooked for projects that would benefit many of the different residents that live over here. And really, thousands of residents do just live off of this commercial corridor, different side streets. Difficult when there's not a lot of sidewalks. There are no street trees. There's minimal crossing opportunity. And as I said, sidewalks on the east side are extremely limited. And these conditions do add to that of the residents. Travel, more likely to travel by car when visiting, some of these locations that are really only a few blocks away. It becomes difficult as people are accessing, coming and going from businesses onto Hawthorne. So enable safer walking, nearby schools, improve access to a lot of locally Black-owned businesses at the shopping center. Next slide. Transit benefits. Better pedestrian facilities enable access to public transit. Athens transit bus routes do run on Hawthorne Avenue. Additional routes run on Prince, Oglethorpe, West Broad, so these can be accessed via short Hawthorne. We are looking for better sidewalks, adequate crosswalks, and safe streets. Encourage residents to walk. Are walking. So health and sustainability, safer walking, biking conditions, also encourage physical activity for nearby residents, improved access to all the different recreational facilities that are near this road or on this road. Fewer cars, less congestion, for the residents. And if you look at the next slide. So TSPLOST 2011, Project 26, Sub-Project 3, Hawthorne Oglethorpe intersection presented in July of 2021. Really hold off to consider the north end. Hawthorne plan also indicates an enhanced bike pedestrian entry from Hawthorne or into the park. This park master plan and the park parallels will serve as a connection of many different pathways along north end of Hawthorne. Athens in Motion includes the two-tier sidewalk project in Tier 1 and widening project along the Hawthorne Avenue area. So this project meets all the strategic commitments outlined by the ACC Mayor and Commission, healthy, sustainable community, transportation, mobility, and connectivity, shared prosperity, a fair community, important to engage citizens, accountable and responsible government. Meets 11 of the 14 project criteria, promotes the goal of improving equitability of capital improvements to the community, affects the community's existing transportation infrastructure improvements, promotes the upgraded and continued use of alternative transportation facilities, increased access to existing facilities, usage of the transit system, including pedestrians, maintains and improves the health air quality, reduces the vehicle miles traveled, travel congestion, time spent in vehicles, in the TSPLOST 2018 corridor improvements, health, walking and LTE. Next slide. So the triple bottom line: economic prosperity, increased accessibility to goods, services, and jobs for nearby residents. That's a lot of our listener residents. Increased accessibility to revenue for local businesses, increased opportunity for nearby residents to discover local businesses, and of course, the social well-being. Increased access to these different facilities, great for everybody. Healthy activities, opportunities, and it does allow the movement of people place to place. It's got the increased connectivity between the neighborhoods, which in turn social capital between the diverse communities that we have around here. Overall. Next slide. Residents are more likely to walk or bike on the safer streets and the sidewalks, or use public transport, not driving cars. Carbon emissions. Workers.
Keith, are you still there?
Yes. Hello?
Okay, it just went quiet, so I wasn't sure if you were. Okay.
The internet's a little bit, the wiring in this building's a little bit old. It takes, it's hit or
Sure.
miss some days.
Yeah, I understand that. Keith, is that the end of your presentation?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
All right. So we already have some hands up for project number 66, and I know it was a little hard to hear Keith, but I did go ahead and include a link to Keith's materials so you can go back and look at the presentation itself and the original project. So first step, we have Katrina and then Frank.
Okay, Keith, you mentioned that this is a high crash area. What elements in your plan are meant to address sort of the dangerous elements over there?
I think the big part of it is really just reducing, again, with all the local neighborhoods and a lot of the people that work up and down that particular corridor, actually, driving to work instead of, when they could actually walk, but they don't feel safe to. Having those particular sidewalks in place and having opportunities for more people to find alternative ways of getting around and opening it up to different business walk-up traffic.
Okay, so sidewalks, because I do agree that there are, I do agree there are sharrows, the bike lanes are kind of narrow, and the cars go pretty fast. So you're recommending just sidewalks to deal with that?
I mean, that was one of the biggest particular parts of the plan was sidewalks, you know, in some of the bike lanes.
Katrina, did you get your answer? Katrina?
Yeah, I'm just sidewalks will address that. I can see widening the bike lanes, maybe. I don't if that's part of the plan, but yeah, I can't see just sidewalks addressing all of those safety issues.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, but the idea is to have the money to figure out what needs to be done, and that would involve talking to the public and to engineers, and it may include sidewalks, it might include bike facilities. This is kind of a little bit of a bucket. Is that right, Keith?
Yeah, thank you for articulating a little bit. That I would say is very fair consideration for three lanes, possible different scenarios for utilizing in park paths.
Okay. And I think for those who are following along in the chat, John had asked a great question about how much of the money would be going to studies versus actual construction. And Andrea looked that up for us, and it's going to be 2.25 million. Our budget is budgeted for construction. Thank you, Andrea. Next on the list, Frank, then Don.
Yeah, I think most of my questions have been answered. They've been messing with Hawthorne Avenue for years. It is the last big incident I remember, it was a pedestrian getting killed right there at Old West Broad and Hawthorne, that intersection where Columbia Brookside is. It's dangerous. Now, I don't know if bike paths being widened is going to take care of that. The whole street needs to be widened. They've gone from one lane to two lanes, back to two lanes, and so forth over the years. And I hope they can get it right this time. That's a dangerous street for pedestrians, and then to emphasize bike paths being widened, that's going to narrow the scope. It's heavily traveled by automobiles, so I'll just be waiting to see what happens with that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your comments, Frank. Don?
Thanks, Lauren, and thanks, Keith, for the presentation. It was cutting out a little bit, so I was looking at your slides. I'm trying to follow the thread here, so I'm referring back to your slide number 8. You refer to 4 different projects that are, I guess, in this area and addressing some of the things that you talk about. So if I start at the bottom with the McCourts Project 14, and I assume that's a road widening project, so then wouldn't that affect your sidewalks and your bike paths? And you've got sidewalks and bike project here with Athens in Motion. I guess I'm trying to understand how, like, what's missing from these 4 projects that you're proposing to do. Does that make sense?
Keith, I think I can help you. I think the one word answer to that, Dawn, is funding. The 3 projects that are the 4 projects that he's listed on slide 8 are things that are in different master plans, but none of them are funded.
None of them are funded. Okay, I did not understand that on the slide. Okay.
And so this project would seek to, I mean, and Keith, I hope I'm not stepping on your toes here, but as I understand the project, a big part of it would be to do the studies that have to be done to determine what is the best approach for the street as a whole, and then use the construction money would most likely just be a starting point. It wouldn't probably be enough to fix everything that needs to be fixed on Hawthorne, similar to some of the other corridor projects we've done. And then we would implement as much of that as we could with the construction money that was available, whether that be sidewalks, bike lanes, landscaped medians, islands, or something, whatever the studies showed out was what was needed for the area.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
And as Keith said, this corridor is high priority for bike facilities and sidewalks as well. Definitely bikes. Better bike facilities, I should say. Wasn't Hawthorne 3-laned in this section to reduce side impact crashes? Does anyone recall that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, which it did do, is what I understand. 50% reduction is what I last heard. Don't quote me on that, but
And rear end crashes by putting the center turn lane, when you had the two lanes in each direction, and one of those 2 lanes was used as a turn lane, you had a lot of rear end crashes, as I recall. That was done, I believe that change was done right around 2006 or 7. It was not long after I moved to Athens.
gotcha. Maybe a question I have, just kind of wondering, is Hawthorne up for repaving anytime soon? I don't know if we have Daniel here.
I will get some info on that real quick.
Okay. So the reason I ask about paving is anytime we put down some fresh asphalt, it allows us to put down paint that's a little bit different. Now that won't, of course, that will not widen the road or give more space for bike lanes, but trying to make money go as far as it can, just thinking about that, since this is an open-ended kind of project. Additional questions from the committee or comments, discussion? Andrea.
I just have a comment for everybody. I mean, I think one of the things that I noticed, I live in Forest Heights, so I'm very familiar with Hawthorne, is all of the children that participate in programs at YMCA and sort of the drop-in line for drop-off and pickup that also creates congestion, and the fact that there's congestion on Hawthorne even in the middle of the day. And I think that this would be a real opportunity. Kids that live in adjoining neighborhoods are being driven to the YMCA because it's not bikeable. And it's such an easy ride. Distance wise, if we made it safe, we'd have so many kids who could access it from neighborhoods nearby and get to the park. So this to me seems like a really important project, and I'm grateful that it was brought forward and appreciate all the work.
Thank you, Andrea. And Keith, now this section that you're talking about, the scope of this project is from Oglethorpe Avenue to West Broad. Is that what you had said?
It's from, yes.
Okay.
Thanks for that clarification, because I was looking at the map and there was a pink line that looked like it went to Bell's, so I appreciate you clarifying that.
Additional discussion? Comments?
Now, I'm seeing on here that it's from Prince Avenue to West Broad. Am I missing something, or am
Yeah,
I
I'm
missing?
sorry about that. I misspoke. It's all the way down to the very, very end. So it goes past Oglethorpe. So, I think slide 2. Yeah, slide 2 has the full thing.
Okay, so it's the project zone actually is from Prince Avenue to West Broad.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Frank, thank you for asking about that. Yeah, I may not be a kid, but I have also biked to the Y, and it is so close. It's so perilous to get to. Teresa.
Yeah, this question is more for Lauren, I guess, than for Keith. I know this road very well, and I I'm I see the bike lanes there and the sidewalks, and I see people walking. I don't ever see any bikes on this road, and there is room for them. So I'm wondering why it is a tier 1 bicycle project. I mean, what does it connect to in terms of bike infrastructure that would make it a tier 1? That's my question.
Yeah, and Daniel might want to chime in here. I think there's a lot of services and businesses along this, as Keith indicated. Some big communities like Columbia Brookside. And Scott has noted in the chat that people ride on the sidewalk here. We have a Bell's at one end, and then folks trying to get to Alps to potentially go to the Kroger. So, a lot of neighborhoods, probably single car or no car folks, and those amenities. Daniel, did you want to chime in on that? Like, have you
Yeah.
looking at Hawthorne a little bit? I know.
Yeah, so I don't have the specific data right in front of me, but if I remember correctly, while we do have some delineated bike lanes there, they are substandard and unsafe. And so with all of the things that that Lauren mentioned, including access to the YMCA, which is kind of a regional thing, and parks and whatnot, I believe that would have justified it as a tier 1. Also, its connection to critical corridors. It connects between 2 major critical corridors, that being Prince Avenue and Atlanta Highway or West Broad.
Neither of which is suitable for much bike traffic. Anyway, I don't want to debate this. I just was kind of intrigued by that. So that was all.
Thank you, Teresa. John?
Yeah, I would, Teresa, partly in response to you and basically echoing what Lauren said earlier. Biking to the Y, I sometimes bike to and from the Y from Boulevard, and when I'm on the stretch between the YMCA and Prince, I often will illegally ride on the sidewalk because I'm really nervous about riding on Hawthorne in there. And the section from Oglethorpe to Alps, I see a lot of pedestrian traffic along there, and I would be really nervous about biking in there as a cyclist because it is, even though there are sharrows, it is really narrow. The traffic's heavy and the traffic is fast. So I absolutely think that for people in that neighborhood who may not be able to afford a car, if we can make that a safer biking place, that seems like a good investment.
And to kind of piggyback off of that, there was recently in one of the mayor and commission meetings, there was a conversation around the Oglethorpe and Hawthorne intersection, which is being redesigned. As part of that discussion, mayor and commission asked Transportation and Public Works to explore concepts of doing 3-laning on that northern section of Hawthorne. And that would allow for more space, but we're running through those studies now and working with our consultants to do that. But so it would tie in with kind of the ongoing mission of Athens-Clarke County from what it sounds like.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Keith, for your presentation. We appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. Y'all have a wonderful night.
You too. Okay. I have just one question. Is Fred Smith and Buck Bacon, are they in the house?
Fred Smith is here.
All right. Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's our nightly meetup.
Yes, yes.
Well, we are glad to have y'all back to present project number 39, East Athens Neighborhood Traffic and Speed Monitoring. And you may begin when ready.
Awesome. All right, so project number 39, North Athens Neighborhood Traffic and Speed Monitoring. I'm sorry, East Athens. Our project scope and goal is to improve pedestrian and vehicular safety by reducing vehicular speeds throughout the East Athens neighborhood, specifically along Vine Street, Fairview, North Peter, East Broad, McKinley, Cone, Little Oak, Arch, and Simmons. And so what we're recommending or asking for is speed enforcement and traffic surveillance cameras along Vine Street, Fairview, North Peter, and East Broad. Yellow curb along Fairview Street, McKinley Drive, and East Broad. And a speed study and potentially speed tables along Fairview Drive, Cone Drive, Little Oak, and Arch. And no truck through signage on Little Oak, Arch, North Peter, and Simons. And so while we think this closes the equity gap, because this improves infrastructure in the East Athens neighborhood, a neighborhood that we believe is traditionally underserved. We think that this investment addresses health and safety concerns in existing conditions by improving traffic circulation, regulating vehicle speeds, and limiting the presence of unsafe truck traffic. And we also think that this improves the quality of life for the residents as they enjoy their neighborhood and traverse throughout the community. We think that this does protect existing transportation infrastructure. We think that it increases access to existing public facilities because we think that by managing vehicular speed that it will encourage pedestrians to use these streets and provide safer walking environment directly adjacent to the existing public facilities. And we think that this will improve air quality by encouraging pedestrian and transit modes of transportation. We think that this promotes health and safety by slowing vehicles and encouraging more active mobility and safer streets for pedestrians. And we also think that this will encourage sidewalk and multi-use construction by promoting safer interconnectivity between the existing sidewalks that would otherwise be disconnected because of lack of pedestrian safety. So we think that this promotes economic prosperity, social well-being, and improves the environment by creating safer streets, reducing likelihood of incidents or bodily harm. We think that this also will improve safer access to the adjacent educational, recreational, and health facilities. And we also think that this promotes alternative modes of transportation, thereby reducing vehicular traffic. All right, Q&A.
Questions from the committee? Alan.
Yeah, you've mentioned a number of times in the East Athens projects that you believe that this is a underserved area. Could you speak to that more and kind of give some of the details there?
Yeah, I think too, and if you just ride through there, you can see that
roads have not been paving in years, and the lack of sidewalk. The community just generally, and we say believe, but it's pretty clear that it has been neglected, and usually, oftentimes, there have been proposals for improvements, but under the normal way that the government decide where to place sidewalks, et cetera, usually we lose out, to the votes. And so the sidewalks and the improvement, they're usually placed somewhere else, maybe 5 Points or Boulevard or in this Chase area, or even downtown. But you don't see those type of improvements that have taken place over there. So it's quite apparent that it has been neglected.
Jennifer?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. One quick question. Do you have any idea if the improvements made along the streets that you have listed would end up would there be effects on other streets that would increase traffic or increase speed that were really unintended consequences?
Yeah, I believe that it probably, just my opinion, I think that it might, slow traffic in some of the other areas, because right now it's almost like an area or zone where this type of provisions have not been placed before. And so I think if we create an environment generally where traffic is moving slower through that community, I think it would probably not just speed up traffic, on the streets, maybe just a little over, but throughout the community. I think it would be, if we could set a tone here that this is, a neighborhood to be respected, and a place to, to slow down.
And if I could address that from a more technical perspective, the measurements the measures that we're asking for have taken that into consideration. For instance, we do want traffic to use Peter Street and East Broad and Vine. What we don't want traffic to do is bypass East Broad or Vine or East Broad and use Fairview, say, for instance, as a cut through. And so for those major roads like Peter Street, East Broad, and Vine, we're recommending speed surveillance, right? So maybe that's a sign that says your speed is. Whereas on Fairview and some of the other side streets, we're recommending speed tables in lieu of those other measures.
Okay, thank you to both of you. That was very helpful.
Daryl?
Yeah, excuse me for being late, and I hope y'all forgive me. But my question is this: y'all have small streets, I'm familiar with the area with Peter Street and Broad Street and these areas you're talking about, Hancock. You have small streets. To do certain things, is there going to be people going to be willing to give up a little bit of their land to assess some of the things for for controlling traffic?
So the limits of our projects are within the curb and gutter, so it wouldn't be on private property.
All right, that's all I had to ask. Thank you.
And I guess for the committee, if a project made it through to presentation it has passed legal muster and staff feels like that there's a way to execute it, and some of those details, like we might not have all the answers for, but we can trust staff to find a solution for what it's worth. So our presenters don't have to have quite that level of detail. It's fine. We'll figure it out. But thanks for asking about that, Daryl. Frank.
Yeah, Right, I agree with you because some of those, and Daryl, I think you answered most of my question because some of those side streets are very narrow, and I think it's still a lot of on street parking in some of those sides. But correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of what you're speaking of in this presentation has to do with signage and things of that nature to address your speed. I think there's a common speed limit in neighborhoods like 30 to 35 miles per hour or something of that. I can't remember from my page, but signage certainly would help in those areas because those streets are narrow, very narrow. The side streets are, and people do tend to use those as cut throughs from your main arteries over there. But I'm agreeing with the problem that you're addressing. Thank you.
Additional questions? I have some for staff, and I don't know if they'll be able to answer all of them. Daniel, are you there? Transportation Public Works? Daniel?
Yes, sorry, had to get to the mute button.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I know there's some other neighborhoods that maybe have similar issues. So I guess what I want to know is is TSPLOST the primary funding mechanism for these items that have been proposed in this project? Like, speed enforcement, traffic surveillance cameras, the yellow curb, speed study and speed tables, through no truck through signage. Is that, if neighborhoods want this kind of thing, are they supposed to put in a TSPLOST? Is this East Athens only option? Or are they on a list buried somewhere, a list that does have funding? Can you provide any insight about that?
There was a neighborhood traffic management program, NTMP program, that was funded, I believe, through 2018 TSPLOST. And I haven't seen that list. I do know that it's in high demand. That would essentially, it's traffic calming for neighborhoods. And once you've applied, it goes through traffic engineering, and they kind of work with a community and come up with those types of things. With yellow curbing, I know that is something that I think is already within our budget. It just has to go through those kind of the whatever the process, work order process. So unfortunately I'm not in traffic engineering, so I don't want to speak too heavily on behalf of Tim, but I would say that if they haven't already, applying for the NTMP in addition to this proposal would be really helpful.
If I can clarify a little bit, so the NTMP was funded through the SPLOST 2011, and there were a lot of communities that applied for that early on, and there were some that met the criteria, and then there was probably more that applied that didn't meet the criteria. And so the criteria was just recently changed about, time flies, probably somewhere around 9 to 12 months ago now. By Mayor and Commission, they adopted some new criteria for communities to apply for that program. So it doesn't have a lot of funding left, but it can cover some of those things like speed tables or the speed signs, or yellow curbing is a totally different process. I don't know, again, I'm not traffic engineering, but like Daniel said, there is a submission process that would have to be done for that, and Mayor and Commission would actually have to approve those areas to get yellow curbed, and it's based on neighbor input, and there'd be some surveys to those that live in the area and information like that would factor into ultimate decision on that. But that would come after, if y'all approve the project or y'all recommended it, that would come later. There's enough in this project that one piece, if Mayor and Commission didn't approve a yellow curbing, the rest of the project was still a valid project.
Thank you. And Daniel, I appreciate you trying to to answer that. I'm just trying to understand like why we have these, what the barriers have been for our neighborhoods and if those barriers are still there. So we do have a couple people on stack. John, I'm going to start with you because you had asked first, and then we'll go with Sarah. I thought you had your hand up, and Katie.
I had my hand up, but I lowered it back down. I thought about it for a second. I was like, that's going to take us way too into the weeds of something, and I'd rather us all get to go to bed early or on time at least.
Okay. So, well, I like talking about this stuff, but yeah, we do have a limited time, so we'll go with John and then Katie.
Sure. Okay. Hey, thanks. Good to see you, Buck and Fred, again. Appreciate your submission. I agree that this is a very underserved neighborhood, and I'm very familiar with problems of speeding and cut through traffic. And this seems like a very modest cost. So, wow, thanks. Two quick questions. First, I wonder if you could. You've been very positive in your spin on the benefits this would provide. I wonder if you have a hair-raising detail or two about the problems, as opposed to the opportunities, that the problems that these neighborhoods or these streets are encountering because of the speeding and the cut-through traffic. Second, I'm interested in the camera and surveillance idea. I wonder, would these cameras be ticket cameras first? And second, are there any, do the neighbors support installing cameras? Are there any concerns about Big Brother is watching? I don't, this is just paranoid me thinking here. So thank you for any thoughts on either of those.
Let me talk about the camera first because that issue has come up before in that community, and I think something happened and it didn't happen. So again, these items, all these came from the community. So there are people in the community who supports the cameras. So that's, I haven't done a scientific study to get, percentages of those who oppose and those who support. But I do believe, and again, these requests came from persons who actually live on those streets. So they are concerned about a number of items, including, I think they might think that this could even help with crime reduction.
Thank you for that response, Fred, and that reminder that this is a community-led effort. So next we have Katie and then Sarah.
Hey, yeah, I also remarked on the low cost on this one. I wanted to ask what the no parking yellow curbing was for, because usually parking actually slows cars down on a street. And I also wanted to mention, yeah, the no through truck signs. We have one on my street in 5 Points, and there's no enforcement. So I don't know if anyone has comments on how to make that happen. But yeah, I was curious about your rationale for the yellow curbing.
I think someone already mentioned the fact that the streets are very narrow. And so in certain places, that yellow curbing would be needed. So that, and not necessarily something that I've observed in this side of the community, but on the other side of North Avenue, where a lot of new construction and houses have been placed. I know that neighbors are complaining about just the number of cars that are parked alongside the road. So this is, I guess, to kind of prevent people from, pretty much blocking the road or taking up spaces, along those roads. That's my thinking on it. It just to prevent people from overusing the street for parking for whatever reasons.
Katie, not Katie, Sarah.
So I wanted to go back to the community input aspect of this, because I think that your answer to that previous question made me think about that in a new way. And I think it relates to most or all of the projects that y'all have come to us with. You know, you've told us pretty much for all of them that they are community driven and community led. And I'm interested in hearing more about what was the process for gathering that community input. Like,
Well, we
yeah.
started the process actually before COVID-19 of having listening sessions, and the community expressed a lot of these wants and needs at that time. But most recently, during this process for TSPLOST, we have a email list that we sent out. And so we sent the email list out to let them know that that TSPLOST was coming along, planned for 2023, and with an vote for next year, and ask them for input on things that they would like to see done. And so these items were sent to me by email, or either people called and indicated these were problems that they saw and that they would like to address.
Yeah, and I see that I have a follow-up question, and it's pretty close to what Travis just put in the chat. How many people showed up at the listening sessions, and how did you advertise, or how did you get people to come to those? And then how did you draw your email list? Like, where did you get those emails? Was there a way to like do outreach to people who might not have already been on it? Yeah, that's all my follow-up for now. I don't want to overload.
Okay. I would say there were probably maybe about 20 people that showed up for the listening session, and I can say that many more than usually show up for a public input session that I've seen. And some of the emails were generated from that, but also through our services, our food distribution. When we did financial assistance, we also collect emails. And so some of those people added, of course, we are careful not to add folks to an email list that may not want to be added to the list. So that's where it came from.
Okay.
We did not get to, we had actually ended up doing 2 listening sessions. The last one, I think the manager was part of that one, but we had planned to do more. In fact, we was planning to meet with the Spring Valley Homeowners Association, but again, COVID-19 changed all those plans.
And Lauren, can I ask one more follow-up question along the lines of community input? It should be quick, I hope.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And just the last question is how many people wanting something did it take for you to bring it to TSPLOST, or was the collection of projects that you've brought to us, is that just, one person said, hey, this would be a good idea, so y'all said, okay, we're going to take that to TSPLOST? Or are we only seeing the most popular projects? Either answer is good. I'm just curious.
Well, the people who responded, who gave input, we brought their projects forward. So we didn't leave anything out.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Sarah, are you asking that because you're a member of the community?
I don't know. I have no, this was kind of the weedsy thing I was saying earlier. I have no idea what community I'm in, so I wouldn't know how like my community could request things. I just moved to the corner of Griffith and Odd, and this area, I don't know if I'm north, I don't know if I'm east. I have no idea.
Yeah. So like even
Most
without, yeah.
of these requests did come from the other side of North Avenue. What I say, because I know that area where you live,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of new construction in there. And when I spoke a moment ago about parking in and down those streets, I went through there. I guess it might have been doing a home football game, and I was just surprised at the number of cars that was parked in that residential area. So,
Oh yeah.
so I know that area as well, but most of the input, I did get some input from a family that lives in your area, and it was for the shelter bus stops. That
Hmm.
was what I got from her.
Hmm.
But again, I relied on the community people to tell me what they wanted.
Yeah. Well, it does sound like I am in your area, so hopefully when the next listening sessions come around, I'll make it to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and certainly Mr. Fred Smith has been around East Athens for a long time, and it sounds like, Sarah, you're just trying to figure out how to best be involved in all these.
Oh yeah, but my primary, my primary point in asking those questions was not in figuring out my personal situation. I was interested in what the nature of the community buy-in for these suggestions was.
Okay.
And that was all very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Fred, and thank you, Buck. Let's see. I haven't seen what the next one is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Fred, thank you for all your community engagement.
Okay.
You've been working on this a long time.
Right.
Thank you. You too, Buck.
Okay, next on our list, the next act up tonight, North Athens, project number 50, North Athens neighborhood Kenwood Drive sidewalks. And is Quazon with you, Buck? And we can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, Quazon is here.
Welcome back. Good to see y'all.
How's everyone?
Good evening. Good evening.
All right. Yep. If we're ready to get started, I'm going to tell a little story just to give a little different flavor as an introduction. As you know, I'm Quazon Payne. I'm the unpaid representative for 9th District, along with my other unpaid representative, Mr. Buck Bacon here. But there was a young minister fresh out of seminary school, and Brother Platt, you'll enjoy this. It's going to be quick. And right out of seminary school, he was hired to this little small church. And the first Sunday, he preached John 3:16. Second Sunday, he preached John 3:16. Third Sunday, he preached John 3:16, and the eyes began to roll in the congregation. The fourth Sunday, when he preached John 3:16, they called a meeting immediately after church, and they wanted to have a discussion with him. They asked him, they said, "Do you know you preached the same sermon 4 Sundays in a row?" And he said, "Yes." He said, "I know that." And they asked him, "Well, why did you do it?" He said, "Well, when you get that right, I'll move on to something else." And I say that to say that all of our projects are dealing with the same issue of public safety. Imminent danger and public safety. That is the background behind all of these North Athens neighborhood projects that you'll see, with the exception of 2. We are trying to get people that are traversing down the road away from traffic. And with that, I'll turn it over to Buck, who can dive off into Kenwood sidewalks, which is an extension of the Fowler Drive project. Those kids that come out of Fowler Drive walk in this neighborhood.
All right, thank you. All right, so project number 50, North Athens neighborhood Kenwood Drive sidewalks. So our project scope, we're proposing an extension of the Fowler Drive Elementary Safe Routes to School along and throughout Kenwood Drive subdivision, along Kenwood Drive, Monty Drive, and ultimately connecting that subdivision and the residents there to Fowler Drive Elementary. We're proposing approximately 5,100 feet of 5-foot wide sidewalk. And so here in this map, you can see Fowler Drive Elementary. There's sidewalk that extends down Fowler Drive and along Freeman Drive. But many of the residents and the students who attend Fowler Drive Elementary live in the Kenwood Drive and Monty Drive subdivision. And so they have to walk in the street or on the shoulder of the road to access the school. This project is identified in the Athens in Motion plan. It's a Tier 2 project, project ID number 48. So here you can see the intersection of Monty Drive at Kenwood. And so you can see that there are virtually no shoulders. And so the students have to walk in on the asphalt. There's no white line here, but they're walking in the street.
We still call them white line.
That's right. The students have to walk in the street in the morning and evenings, usually dusk and dawn, to get to school. You can see here another image of Kenwood Drive. Again, there are no shoulders. There's no other option but for students and residents to walk inside the limits of the pavement street. Again, another image of Monty Drive. You can see no shoulders and nowhere else to walk but in the street. I'd also note that these streets are narrow. So these streets are, I think they're roughly 18 to 20 feet wide.
Yes.
So there's not a lot of room for two-way traffic and pedestrians to walk. So while we think this closes the equity gap, we do think that North Athens neighborhood is a traditionally underserved area of our community. We think that investing infrastructure funds in this project will address accessibility issues and connectivity within the neighborhood. We think that this does address health and safety concerns over the existing conditions by providing safe areas for students and their parents to walk to school. And we think that by adding sidewalks to this neighborhood, that it will create a safer environment for students and families who attend Fowler Drive Elementary. We think that this does protect the community's existing investments in transportation infrastructure. We think that this reduces pavement maintenance by removing vehicles from the streets. We think that this continues or promotes the upgrade and continued use of alternative transportation facilities and increases access to existing public facilities by promoting bike and pedestrian connectivity to Fowler Drive Elementary. And we also think that this improves air quality, reduces vehicle miles traveled, traffic congestion, and reduces time spent traveling in vehicles by encouraging pedestrian modes of transportation. We think that this promotes health and safety, and we also think that this directly supports sidewalk and multi-use trail construction, offering connectivity to existing public community centers. We think that this will provide economic prosperity and social well-being to North Athens by providing greater access to educational opportunities in community centers, increasing economic opportunities, and improving equitable access to these public facilities for the traditionally underserved residents of the neighborhood. And we also think that this is a positive impact to the environment because we do offer pedestrian modes of transportation, reducing vehicular traffic and CO2 emissions. Anything else you want to add?
No, I want to jump right into questions. or before the question was asked, I'll piggyback off of the question that was asked to Fred. All of these proposals are the direct result of several neighborhood meetings. We met at Cole Elementary School, we met at Fowle Drive, we met at Forest Lodge. I think, Keith, you were at a couple of these meetings along with some of the other government officials. Ovita has a network of email and texts that she sent out for about 3 weeks. I've received all types of notices about all of these different projects and had to take off work just to put it all together and put these in project format. So I wanted to go on and respond to that because that question was brought up with Fred.
Thank you, Quezon, for answering. Questions about Kenwood Drive and Monty Drive sidewalks. First up, Teresa.
Yes, hello again. So I'm curious about the part of your project from from Freeman to the Fowler School. It appears that there is sidewalk along Fowler Drive on one side of the road. Is that a continuous sidewalk or is there a gap?
There's continuous sidewalk along Fowler Drive.
Right.
Yeah, we're not proposing this project. We're not proposing sidewalk on Fowler.
Okay, because it said to connect to Fowler Drive Elementary, so that was confusing to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's via the existing sidewalks
Yes.
that lead
Okay.
to Freeman. Yeah.
Okay, and then just one other question. The neighborhood here would not be likely to have a lot of cut-through traffic because it's a bunch of cul-de-sacs. Is speeding on the part of the residents an issue?
That's the next project that we're going to present to you. It's coming.
Okay.
Right after this one.
So Teresa, the answer to that is yes. There are speeding concerns in the neighborhood.
And just to confirm what Buck had said, Monty Drive and Kenwood Drive are Tier 2 for pedestrian facilities, 0.5 miles. Additional questions from the committee?
So,
Frank?
Yeah, I'm surprised. It's been a while since I've been over in that area. So streets are so narrow, and when you get two cars going different directions and kids are walking, that's dangerous.
Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Thank you for bringing that to attention.
Daryl.
I think, yeah.
Yes, I got a question. I'm like, you notice that on the last two presentations that the areas have small lanes, like small areas, you only one car can come through, or if somebody double parked, you can't go around. I'm like, I was going to ask the question is there some kind of way that it could be a buy program for them to give up part of their land or something so they can be able to make the lanes wider? I'm just putting it in the air. You understand what I'm saying? Like you got houses here that have land, they have a certain amount of land that's there that they might got fenced there. They can sell a part of their land to the city, and they make these lanes wider because we got a lot of streets that have narrow lanes. I mean, narrow streets. I'm just putting it in the air.
Yeah, and I believe that often when there is an infrastructure project, there will be sometimes purchasing of land right away. Of course, sometimes people aren't really happy about that. So, there's trade-offs there. But that certainly does happen, and it certainly has happened for lane widenings and major road projects. I think even at one point my street was widened, and it clearly cut into the people across the street, like their yards, and not houses on my side of the street. So this does happen, Daryl. And we do have a question in the chat. Dawn was wondering how many households would benefit from this project? Do you have a sense for that, Quaison?
We've got, from a question that I posed to Fowler Drive, they said they have about 40 students that live down in that neighborhood. A little over 40 students. And that's as much information that they would share with you.
Yeah, I just counted it up, and there's 65 homes there. And sorry, I think I accidentally privately sent that to somebody. So
Yeah, I counted 75, but
40 students, a little over 40 students.
Yeah.
I did. We did run a conceptual cost estimate for a gentleman who was also putting this forward initially, and we counted over 30 properties for land acquisition. So 15% is calculated into. We had calculated $102,000 for land acquisition. I'm not sure what the Buck. Do you know what the number is that you guys are asking for on this?
I can pull it up here in a second.
But that's just to speak to that land acquisition right away purchasing that Daryl had mentioned.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for chiming in there. Sarah, did you have your hand up?
Sorry, left it up.
Okay, Daryl, did you raise your hand again? Okay, just checking. I just don't want to miss anyone.
So, Daniel, we asked for about $2.4 million total, including right-of-way acquisition.
And Daniel, I did forward that information. We included that information that you sent to the gentleman that you're referencing. We did use that information as well. Okay.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, we might have upped that. We put 100 when we went through the technical review. We have 150 listed for property acquisition.
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Yeah, that was our preliminary estimate, so that makes sense.
Questions or discussion? All right, if there's none, we will go ahead and move on to the next North Athens project. This is number 51, Neighborhood Pedestrian Safety Improvements. Take it away.
All right, so project number 51, North Athens Neighborhood Pedestrian Safety Improvements. Our project scope is our goal is to improve pedestrian safety through improved street lighting along primary corridors for after school and work mobility. So along Fowler Drive, Walker Drive, Smoky Road, Kenwood Drive, Birkeland Drive, Pittard Road, and other locations as the budget might allow for. And so if we look at Fowler Drive, Kenwood Drive, and Pittard Road, you can see these images here. There is limited lighting along these stretches of street. Fowler Drive, there's the school is directly adjacent. On Kenwood Drive, obviously we're proposing sidewalks, but also most of those students are walking to school either dusk or at dawn, and I also don't want to leave parents out as well who are escorting those children to school. So often they're walking in the dark. The same with Pittard Road, that connects to Cole Middle School. So there are parents and students who walk along Pittard Road in dusk or dawn and do not have proper lighting. This is an image of Smoky Road. So you can see that there are no shoulders for people to walk along, and so they're often walking to the commercial areas located along Danielsville Road. They're walking, as Quaison says, white lining, but there's inadequate lighting to ensure their safety. Similarly, on Birkeland Drive and Walker Drive, J.J. Harris is located across the street. So this is traveled by students at J.J. Harris, often in the evenings or early morning, and there is not adequate lighting for them to safely walk to school and their businesses. So why do we think this closes the equity gap? You guys have kind of heard this before. We do feel like North Athens has been traditionally underserved. We do think that this investment will improve health and safety concerns. We do think that this increases accessibility and connectivity within the neighborhoods, and particularly related to the time of use, when people can use these sidewalks. And then we also think that this cuts down on crime. So we think about people who are going to work early in the morning or coming home late at night. They're walking down these streets and don't feel secure, and there are opportunities for them to be victims of crime. We also think that this improves residents' access to community facilities, events, commercial centers, particularly for after hours and at dark. So we think that this meets the Mayor and Commission's approved strategic commitment and project selection criteria by providing equitability of capital improvements throughout the community, by focusing on improvements in the North Athens neighborhood. We think that this increases access to existing public facilities, mainly for pedestrians and students who have to utilize these streets in the morning and evening times. Also to attend public events at the respective schools. And then we think that this promotes health and safety by providing street lighting. It allows pedestrians to use the sidewalk or the street without fear of being encountered by a vehicle. It promotes or makes it safer, avoids criminal activity, and provides safer access to facilities. And we think that this does promote economic prosperity by increasing or improving access to educational opportunities in community centers. And we also think that by doing the same, it also promotes social well-being by improving equitable access to these public facilities. Anything?
No,
Quezon, would you like to add?
Pretty simple, just street light.
Derek, Gandy, can you hear me? Because we can hear you. So could you mute? Thank you. Okay, questions for Quezon and Buck on the pedestrian safety improvements, the lighting that's proposed in this project? Because I have some questions, but John.
Sorry. Hey, I'm stunned at the cost of this. Don't you need to add a 0 or 2 to that project budget figure? So how many additional or improved streetlights would this $32,000 provide? I'm stunned that these areas look so unlit.
So there is some lighting in the neighborhoods. So at intersections, and so we're just looking at lighting throughout the rest of it. The other thing I'd add is that all of these streets have overhead power. So
Right.
there's existing power poles. So
Yeah.
we're proposing that those lighting fixtures could be placed on existing power poles. So that's where we find the efficiency.
And we're
And do
not
you have a
looking for
ballpark number
continuous
for how
lighting.
many? Sorry.
We're not looking for continuous lighting. We're looking
Right.
for, gap lighting.
Okay. And do you have a rough ballpark number for how many additional lights would be added for this?
Yeah, so we think a lighting fixture cost around $800. So we think we could probably get about 40 Cobra head lighting placed on existing poles.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thanks.
And would these be the LED lighting that we have around town now?
Oh, yes. On poles, not the black poles that you see downtown, though. We're talking about street lights, not the street lights or the sidewalk lights. Yeah,
Okay.
those are way more than $800.
Yeah, and Rocky was asking, is this Georgia Power or Walton EMC or another?
Yeah, this area is served with
both. It's both Jackson EMC and Georgia Power.
Okay, so
It's
Jackson
split.
EMC. Good question. A question I had, and this may be more of a staff question, they may have to get back to us, but is there an Athens-Clarke County lighting master plan? I'm trying to figure out like how we give people lights. How is TSPLOST the only mechanism for folks to get lights? I just kind of hate to think that everyone's going to have to have 5 years between putting in projects to get street lights for their neighborhood. So I'm just curious about that, and I don't know if we can get an answer on that today.
Yeah, all I can tell you is like everything, there is a process for that. There's a submission that you can go through for that, and I don't know what that process is, but we can find out.
Thank you, Keith. Rocky?
Yeah, I was just the reason I asked which power company it is because Walton EMC, I live in a Walton EMC service area, and in order for them to switch from sodium halide, or I forget what the orange ones are called, to an LED, they want to charge the county 300% upcharge plus the cost of it or something crazy, where Georgia Power's just changing them as they go out at the same cost. But it doesn't make sense because they're generating so much less electricity. So that's why I asked that question.
Thank you, Rocky.
Well, they should be careful with that because that's a potential lawsuit. The new LED fixtures burn tremendously less than the old fixtures. So I have friends at Georgia Power that are saying that they actually are making more money by changing out the fixtures to LED in a lot of the parking lots.
Additional questions or discussion? Right. Well, thank you all. Good to see you again. Will we see you tomorrow night?
Absolutely.
All right.
I'll be preaching the same sermon, public safety.
See what you did there. Nicely done. Nicely done. Well, we look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow night.
Thank all of you.
See ya. Okay, time for our next project and committee. After this project, after number 89, Southeast Clarke Park Transit Access, we will take a 5-minute break. So I believe let me see, Jake Moss in the house. Jake, are you back?
Again.
Welcome.
Nice to see everyone.
We are
Thanks
so
again.
popular. We keep having folks come back to hang with us. I love it. All right, Jake, are you pedaling or driving or steering?
I am pedaling.
Okay. So this is project number 89, Southeast Clarke Park Transit Access. Take it away.
Slideshow. Okay, so for those of you, most of you, I think were here for the presentation last night on the Lexington Road Corridor bike and pedestrian improvements. And this is kind of a complement to that. It is sort of contiguous and it will improve transit and alternative transportation options along the Lexington Road Corridor that is so badly in need of them. It will also create more opportunities for recreation and transit access on the east side. So right now, the existing conditions for Southeast Clarke Park are that there is a lack of connectivity within the park. It's actually pretty difficult to get on foot from one part of the park to another. For example, the World of Wonder to the skate park or to the pickleball courts or tennis courts. There's a lack of neighborhood connectivity to the park, and there's no transit access to the main recreational facilities part of the park. That's the Lexington Road entrance. There's also an issue of safety Right now, all of the transit lines basically use Walmart as their exchange. Exchange is the wrong word. Their transfer point. And it's a busy parking lot that is unsafe for riders and pedestrians. And one of the things this would do is pave the way for a new transfer center within Southeast Clarke Park itself. There are also no amenities for riders waiting, and you'll see a picture of that in a second. And finally, accessibility. So there's a lack of pedestrian infrastructure within the park, and the park is really only accessible by vehicles. It's actually easier to drive 30 minutes away to access the park than it is for some people who are a mile or two away, just because of the lack of transportation options. So these are the current existing transit service. You can see that these are the ends of the lines. One is here on Lexington, one is at the Walmart. Actually, the green line and this purple line are purple. Is that purple? Are both in the Walmart. So line 27, the green line, is the only line that serves the Whit-Davis side of the park, and that comes every 30 minutes. And no transit lines serve the Lexington Road side of the park. You'll see this map a couple times, and this shows the three main elements of this proposal. So what we're proposing, let me find a place for your little box where I can see my own map. What we're proposing is a connector drive. This is the essential part of the project that would connect, basically form a loop between the existing entrance by the skate park around to pass behind the pickleball courts to the existing tennis center, which of course is also an important polling place for the east side. It's where I cast my votes. We are also proposing a roundabout, an improved facility at the corner of Lexington Road and the tennis court entrance. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's the second element, because right now that intersection cannot accommodate buses. It's this 55-minute speed limit, 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. Buses would be turning into that traffic, and it doesn't have the width to accommodate buses safely. So that's the intersection improvement. And the third element is a multi-use path. That's this yellow dotted line that would connect the two sides of the park. So that would allow bikes, pedestrians, anyone who doesn't want to walk through the woods to get to the other facilities to access the other part of the park. And keep in mind, this is a perspective. A bunch of this stuff on this side of the map is perspective. All of these fields don't exist as such yet. But the parking infrastructure that we need is there already, and we'll see that later in another picture. So this will allow improved connectivity for park visitors and improved traffic flow during special events. So this is the existing bus stop at the East Side Walmart. If you can pick it out, there's not much to it. It's just a bus stop sign on a pole. And this is what we're using as a transfer center for all of the east side of Athens. So the facilities are not adequate for a transfer station. Compare this to the beautiful multimodal center downtown, and you can see how the east side has really kind of been neglected in terms of transit infrastructure. So this is the intersection that we're talking about improving with the roundabout. So this, without a safe exit from Southeast Clarke Park, transit vehicles are not able to bring transit service to the park. So this is where we would be looking to put in the roundabout, which would have the extremely excellent beneficial impact of traffic calming traffic that is coming in from out of town. Because this is, as you heard me rant about last time, sorry, I was distracted by that comment. People come whizzing in to town, and we really need some way to make this road safer and let them know, okay, you're in Athens now, so watch out for pedestrians and bicyclists and people moving slowly. So the goals of this project are to create better access to and from the park, to build better connectivity, to facilitate better transit, and to provide equitable access to transit for all ACC residents and visitors. The project request with everything is about $7 million. 7.4, and we can talk more about that, the composition of those costs later. It will complete that roadway that I described, develop intersection improvements, and create the multi-use path. Here's the map again, so you can see. I stuck that in here again because I know it's difficult to visualize these things sometimes. So the improvement opportunities include better access to the World of Wonder playground, which people come to for miles and miles around, and the only skate park in Athens, which is actually even a regional attraction. Also better access to the other amenities and programming for the surrounding neighborhoods and for Athens as a whole. Pickleball, tennis, opportunity for a future pickleball plaza that is funded by grant or donation. So one of the impacts of having that connector is that we could actually have a better chance to get the small grants that are available for things like this once we actually have the infrastructure in place to support people actually getting to those spots. Here's an overhead aerial view of what we would use as the transfer station. So this would sort of be the beachhead into creating a new transfer station on the east side. That's not something that would be funded with these funds, but once we have the connectivity and the ability for buses to get through and around the park, we would then have the opportunity to leverage that to get future funding to create a transfer station, as well as a future location for bus vehicle charging stations and a potential park and ride. One benefit of this is that transit users can use park facilities while waiting for their bus instead of hanging out outside the Walmart. And here's a map of the sort of overall transit system. So this pink area is the east side zone. The yellow lightning thingy is where we're looking at. So you can see this would be a nice, an important transit transfer center eventually for the east side of Athens. And they're currently looking at various sites, and this is really the prime location. It would also, promote use of the park and all of its facilities. And this top drawing is not in Athens, but this is what we visualize the future transfer station to look like. Improved shelter for people waiting for the bus. And oops, I went backwards. And this is sort of the service area of the potential future transit station. And so transit, if we using Southeast Park as a hub for East Side Transit would allow expansion into the East Side neighborhoods and rural areas, as well as expanded service to all of the facilities that are the destinations that are available on the East Side, including a potential future library and other amenities in Southeast Athens. This project would close the equity gap by increasing accessibility to people of all abilities and backgrounds. As I mentioned, people come from all around to come to these places, yet to this park, but many people in our own community have limited access. It would also provide access to the skate park, and utilizing it as a bus transfer station would create opportunities for more neighborhood use of transit, more transit routes. It supports 13 of the 14 project criteria. Obviously, the main one we're looking at is increased usage of the transit system and better pedestrian access to transit facilities. Alternative transportation is an element. And then, of course, all of the environmental impacts that you get from more people riding transit as opposed to driving. Improved access, thank you, means increased prosperity. So by developing more diverse accessibility options to one of Athens' premier parks, we can create more opportunities for residents and visitors to enjoy those facilities safely. And that is it. So questions. Daniel is here to help. Daniel, I think, and Victor are both here to participate in the discussion, if that's okay.
All right, hands up. Rocky, is your hand up?
Yes, it is. So I think you answered my question already. Would there be opportunity to make more of a connection to the tennis center for the purpose of voting? I serve on our board of elections, so that's something that's important to me, actually.
Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Aside from just being able to park at that main, I'm going to call that left parking lot in the center of the park, the main Lexington side.
Mhm.
And then there's the tennis center parking lot. And then there's the
Right.
Whit Davis side. So there's kind of three main entrances to this park that are all separated from each other. So aside from bringing access, having additional parking, there's the increased access via transit. Right now, transit can't really come to the park because they can't get back out on the Lexington Road. And that's why the intersection improvement is so important, so that the buses can get back out, and then that can kind of be here. So you could have a bus stop at the main part of the park, and then you could have a bus stop at the tennis center.
Yeah, I'd like to see some way for the bus to get closer to the tennis center if that's an option, but thank you.
Yeah, the bus would travel down that orange line that you see, and so they would actually go right in front of the tennis center.
Oh, and then exiting by that church there on the right out
Correct.
to Lexington.
And the yellow thingy is the multi-use path.
Got it.
That would provide pedestrian access between the two halves of the park. Smooth, level pedestrian access. Not everyone likes to hike through the woods.
Daryl.
Yes, I had a question. You was talking about Walmart, and you saying the unsafety of the patrons there. I'm like asking, what is Walmart doing to make sure that the patrons are safe coming through to get to these areas? You know, if they coming over to the store, because I know it's a lot of people in them areas, mostly walk or catch the bus to the store. So what is Walmart doing to ensure safety on their property, that nothing happens to those people by the time they get on their bus or go across the street or to the park? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, Vic, do you think you could speak to that?
Sure. Yes, sir. That is a great question, and that's one of the reasons why we're looking to possibly relocate that bus stop from the current position if space is available elsewhere within the property occupied by Walmart. Generally, parking lots incur a lot of pedestrian conflicts just because you have people parking their vehicles and exiting the vehicles and heading into the store, and you also have people who are reversing their cars to exit the facility as well. And just general nature of that activity, you have great possibility for pedestrian vehicle conflicts, um, um, increasing the likelihood for injury to pedestrians who are trying to use transit facilities.
Thank you, Victor. Let's see.
There was a question in chat from Scott. I believe the library location has not been selected, but this would make the park a more ideal location. I believe one of the main locations they were looking at was along Gaines School Road, but if that didn't work out, this could make it where you have a lot more access to the park and the prospective library branch.
All right, we have a couple people with hands up. Let's start with Travis.
So this particular, I guess, mini transit center that we're talking about, right now, are there any programs through the county transit system that can get a person to that park, to Southeast Clarke Park? I go there twice a week. I think it's kind of crazy that you can't catch public transportation there at Sandy Creek. That just tells me you don't want poor people there. Not you all individually, specifically, but the group, right? Collective. So are there any programs in place where people can get there now? I guess that's my first question. I got a brief follow-up, depending.
Sure, I'd love to answer that one. I'm again Vic Pope with Athens-Clarke County Transit. We're looking to expand transit service out past Southeast Clarke Park, eventually to the edges of the Athens-Clarke County balance. The same applies to the North Athens corridor. And actually, y'all get to hear from me about that here in a little bit, but I'll say that for right now. And we're just basically trying to get transit countywide. One of the reasons that we have not expanded transit services to Southeast Clarke Park is due to the danger of exiting Southeast Clarke Park. As you may be aware, it's a 4-lane highway, high speeds. I think it's 55 going down to 45 in that area. And if you've never driven a 40-foot transit bus, let me tell you, that thing's sort of a beast when you're trying to make a left turn across traffic. That's the primary reason we have not extended our transit line to that area.
And I guess that goes to my next question. Have you all considered how many routes would come through there? Would it just be like 25, 27? Would it be like, have you thought about what that would be? Would that connect the east and the west? Would it just be east side lines? Just out of, if you have thought about that, if not, I understand.
Well, so I could probably take up all y'all's time talking about transportation projects and improvements that we've got planned. One of the things that we are going through this coming year, and I hope that everyone on board will participate, is the Transportation Development Plan update. Part of that Transportation Development Plan update is reviewing all Athens-Clarke County Transit current routes, as well as the current needs of residents throughout Athens-Clarke County, to develop a transit system that better supports the needs of the city. Since it has grown, last time we did this was back in 2018, so we try to do it every 5 years as part of our compliance. And part of that process, I mean, the current 25, 27, and 22 setup, it's great for what it is, but we can find ways to better serve the public. And it's sort of been a route patterns that have been passed down over the years and just really not revisited in depth. And that's one of the things that we were trying to do with the additional remote transfer facilities that we're proposing, including the one that's proposed here in Southeast Clarke Park.
So is your position this would speed that up? If we were to fund this would speed up those sorts of changes? Or that's my last piece, just curious.
Yes, sir. It'd be part of a multimodal aspect of transportation improvements, and the aspect that the city already owns the property. That's definitely a plus as far as accessibility, and also as far as total project cost, as land acquisition is a huge cost in any project that we encounter.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for your questions, Travis, and Vic, thank you for your answers. Real quick, some perspective on the folks who are getting off at these transit stops to maybe go to the skate park, as Jake suggested. If you get off at across from Firewood Street or at Firewood Street on Route 27, then it's about 0.6 miles to the skate park going through the woods. If you get off at the Walmart stop, you know, if you're taking 22, 25, or 27, you have to cross Lexington, and it is another 0.6 miles walking just to get to that facility within the park. Next, Sarah?
One thing I was going to add on to Vic's answer, if that's okay. One of the other projects that was presented, I believe it was Patrina Huff, the micro mobility or the micro transit option. This would really be a prime location for something like that. If you recall the kind of vision of the east side and the lack of transit access there, rather than having your main station for those microbuses be in downtown Athens, and then you call and you have to wait 20 minutes for the bus to show up, you would already have those vehicles out here on the east side transit station or the west side future transit station. And so it really creates almost like a launching pad to provide much faster service to those areas that could benefit from that the most.
Thank you, Daniel. We have about 4 more minutes for questions or discussion. So I have Sarah next.
Yeah, I was just wondering how this ties into I know that there are 2 new transfer stations, I think, from 2018 TSPLOST. I don't exactly remember what is going on there, only that I've read about it and that new transfer stations are being discussed. How does this fit into that project? And if if a transfer station from that project was not selected to go here, how would that impact this project?
Okay, I'll sort of take the lead on this one. So Daniel's map that shows the purple salmon colored sort of splotch, that is actually one of the zones that we have selected for one of our transfer facilities. So the Southeast Clark Park sits really in a prime location for a potential candidate, or it is really the potential candidate that I'd like to see for a transfer facility. Let's see, I'm sorry, what was the second half of your question?
So I definitely see your point about why you would want that to be the location. I am not super clear on the process for choosing the transfer location. I assume that it is not the same as this one. So basically, if through that other process that's happening, a different transfer station is chosen, how is this funding still going to be useful? I'd like to hear that version of things from you.
So aside from just having the transit access to Southeast Clark Park, it really opens up a lot of opportunities within the park for better connectivity and, you know, better ability to add in those amenities that are outlined in there. The master plan for Southeast Clark Park was updated, I believe, in 2016 or 18, somewhere between 2016 and 2018. And that's what we see here. And so even just having that connector drive in there would be hugely beneficial, and bringing transit access to the park would still be hugely beneficial. But yeah, as far as the map goes, if you actually go down or to the one with the aerial background and all the different colored bus lines, that map right there is literally, that's a screenshot from the public input materials for when they were looking at site selection. One of the major benefits with this site for that transfer station being here is you don't have to acquire land, which that's kind of the biggest, not the biggest, but one of the main concerns. You know, is the landowner going to be okay with, you know, selling, or, you know, how do you pick a site for that kind of thing?
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have just under a minute, so Dawn and then Teresa quickly after her.
Thanks. I think this is a great project. I live across the street, so obviously I'm interested. I guess I'm curious on deciding the roundabout. Rather, I mean, I don't know how you go about deciding this, but it seems like a roundabout is very expensive compared to if you put a light there at the what I call the tennis entrance exit, where the church is. Would that not be a lesser expensive way to, you know, start this transit location?
Absolutely. I'll take that one since it's transportation based. But the roundabout idea, that is a GDOT roadway, and so it has to fall within certain counts for to justify a traffic signal. That being said, I think if we were paying for it fully with local dollars, you're much more likely to see them say that we could do that. The roundabout idea was kind of, hopefully, you know, I think GDOT in general really likes those a lot more. It also creates that kind of gateway entrance into Athens, and so there's some traffic calming that comes along with it. But the roundabout was priced out at about 3.5 million, and the signal for that location, if I remember correctly, was 1.2. So that would cut down in costs. And we do plan on putting forth an alternative that you guys can take a look at, which would include downgrading that to a signal.
And sorry, since you mentioned GDOT, would they, is there a way to get them to contribute if you did go with the roundabout?
There are a lot of different funding opportunities. It also adds pretty substantially to project management costs, but I think that could be something that we could explore. Keith Sanders, you probably have a lot more experience dealing with them in that realm?
I mean, it would have to be a project that they would agree and have merit with, not just something that we take. If we could show that it was something that was a safety improvement or fit within their other project limits. But generally, when you go for funding, particularly with GDOT, you're looking at something at least a 4 to 10 year window before something gets funded. The Loop project, the Lexington Road exit that they're just about to start construction on, that project they've been working on for about 25 years. So it's just there's so many it's kind of like the process you're going through right now. They have so many more projects than they have money for. But if it was deemed a safety issue that it could be shown, they might have some safety money to participate in it.
All right. Well, y'all, we are over time for this project. So if you have any more questions for Jake or staff, please use the submission form and I'll post that link here in a second. We are going to take a 5-minute break before we hear from Athens Transit themselves and continue with our night of presentations. So see you back here at 7:35. Thank you, Jake, for your presentation.
Thanks, everyone. Keep up the great work. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And everyone, please remember we are still live as we are on break.
It's a comprehensive. Hey, Chief.
All right, 7:35, summoning the committee. Committee reemerge. Reconvening the committee. Your mission is
You're trying to conjure up the committee.
welcome back, welcome back. Okay. Just giving folks another second or two. And as folks are coming back, our next two projects are both from Athens Transit. And it looks like in addition to Victor being here and Derek, Pat is here. And Pat, are you presenting these projects?
I'm actually presenting this first project.
I'm sorry, I had to unmute. No, not this time.
Okay. All right, so Derek is going to steer the big bus, or do you need us to drive?
If you could drive, that would be great.
All right. Happy to do that. I don't know if Keith has a Class B license, but we'll find out. Is it Class B?
So Derek, if you would just let me know when you need the slide changed.
All right.
This is what, 26?
Right,
yep. Okay.
All right. My name is Derek Gandy, and I am the Transit Maintenance Administrator. I oversee the maintenance of the fleet and facilities for the Transit Department. All right, next slide, please. All right, our current transit maintenance and operations facility is 45 years old. Since the facility was built, the demand for transit services has increased greatly because of the growth in population and environmental awareness. The current facility houses a fleet that has tripled in size since the facility was built. The staffing required has obviously increased with the fleet size to support and maintain the fleet. Our facility is at full capacity. The current space and infrastructure inhibits the growth and lacks the resources to support electric and hydrogen propulsion systems offered in today's transit market. The approval of this project will enable transit to build a 75-year maintenance and operation facility that will encompass the space, infrastructure, and utilities to meet the transit demands and significantly reduce the overall impact that Athens-Clarke County transportation has on the environment. In addition to the maintenance and operations facility, this project includes 3 transfer stations that will make transit more convenient to use and encourage choice ridership. All right, next slide, please. All right, and next slide, please. Okay. Project highlights. This project will replace a facility that was built around the fleet 1/3 of our current fleet size, and it utilized all fossil fuel propulsion technology that is harmful to the environment. I would like to add that the current facility was built to ergonomic and safety standards of 1976. Transit's employee efficiency and safety will improve in a new facility with more space, improved ergonomics, and up-to-date safety provisions. One example that comes to mind for me is the space that we have in our parking lot. It can be a real trick for the transit staff to safely drive a vehicle around the building without running into another vehicle during the hours that we do post-route servicing because of the undersized parking lot and parking spaces. Athens needs these new facilities if it wants to offer excellent transit services that are equitable for all users and reduce its impact on the environment through the use of zero-emission vehicles. And next slide, please. All right, project benefits. The benefits far outweigh the financial contribution. The new facility will enable transit to purchase zero-emission vehicles, have space for expansion to meet the community's transit demand, serves a safe and efficient base for staffing to conduct operational maintenance functions, remove commercial traffic from a residential area, remove the financial commitment needed to renovate the current facility, and eliminate underground fuel storage and eliminate the county's need to purchase fossil fuels for transit. All right, next slide, please. All right, as I mentioned before, the current transit facility is located in a residential area. So this new facility will not be in a residential area and eliminate the possibility for contact with, you know, pedestrians and other things in a residential area. So next slide, please. And this just shows our two facilities, location of them. And next slide, please. Okay, environmental. The Athens-Clarke County transit fleet burns roughly 250,000 gallons of fossil fuel every year and emits all of the toxins into the air that goes along with that. A new maintenance and operations facility will reduce and eventually eliminate transit's dependence on fossil fuels to operate. The elimination of conventional propulsion systems in the transit fleet will reduce exhaust gases emitted into the community, reduce noise pollution, and eliminate the need for lubricants, fluids, and chemicals associated with diesel engine maintenance. The new facility will also give transit the opportunity to incorporate rooftop solar panels that can reduce the draw that it has on the electrical grid. Other noteworthy environmental advantages include reduced water usage, eliminate potential fuel spills from storage tanks and equipment, and the ability to produce hydrogen fuel for transit fleet propulsion systems. And next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, upgrades and increases the use of transit system. As I mentioned earlier, this will include 3 remote transfer stations. Again, it will encourage the use of transit through convenience. And let's see, it's a 75-year facility, again, as I mentioned earlier. And that's pretty much it. Open for questions.
Thank you, Derek. Is that Teresa or Sarah who had their hand up? Because someone left their hand up, I think. Okay,
I
Teresa.
just put mine up, so I didn't leave it up.
Okay.
So I'm curious about a couple things. The building that you showed us that is currently in operation, is that the multimodal center over near the Classic Center?
Is that the one that was on the first slide?
The one that you showed us. I don't believe we saw a picture of the multimodal, the modern facility, but it looked like a kind of an older building.
It must have been the old facility, yeah. Yeah, it was built in 1976.
Okay, so where the current multimodal,
That's
that
it.
one.
That's the building, yep.
Okay, behind the Classic Center.
No, Teresa, they're 2 different facilities.
Okay, that's where I'm getting confused. Where is this one located?
This one, the current operations and maintenance facility is on Pound Street. It's right across from what used to be the old Naval Academy on Prince Avenue.
Okay.
And it's where Pound and Boulevard connect.
Okay.
The old stockade.
So these 3 new transfer stations, would they be for maintaining the buses, or would they be places where people would go to pick up buses and where the buses would loop to and from?
I'll take that one. Teresa, the transfer facilities, actually, that tags into the previous project actually that Daniel mentioned, where the potential sites are for transfer facilities have been selected. We're looking, part of this project is for the funding of the actual facility once those sites are selected.
Okay.
So they will be placed based on a public comment and suitable sites.
All right, so do you have like a rough idea of where you'd like them to be?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We've identified 3 zones, one on the east side of Athens out there near Southeast Clarke Park, and also near Broaden Alps in the central side of Athens, and on the west side of Athens, it's out past Mitchell Bridge in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
Sarah.
Yes.
Sarah?
Sorry, I thought someone else said yes after you said my name, and I was like, oh, I must have misheard. So for that transfer station, I know this is very similar to the question I just asked. The transfer stations that this funding that in this project are going to are the same transfer stations for which locations are already being picked, or is that coming from 2018 TSPLOST, or are we in need of this to continue that project, or is this additional transfer stations beyond the ones that are already funded by 2018 TSPLOST?
I'm going to refer to Victor on that one.
This is basically a continuation of the 2018 TSPLOST process. Part of that, those funds were identified, and also we're going through the site selection process. So now we are basically taking the funds that we have received through the 2018 TSPLOST and completing the rest of the project at this point.
There's not enough funds in the 2018 program to certainly not to build 3. There probably is enough to build 1, maybe a portion of 1 depending on the size. But right now we're going through site selection as part of 2018, and then if we then purchase the sites, there should be enough funding in there depending if we get any more grants to purchase sites. And then this project would include the money to construct those 3 sites.
That's
along with a new whole maintenance facility.
Thank you.
And I guess it would be a duplicate, Victor. One of the 3 could possibly be the same as what was in Project 89 that we were just talked about.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Victor, can you speak to how the transfer stations will allow Athens Transit to expand operations and why we can't now with what buses we have?
Sure. Currently we're using larger heavy-duty vehicles, which are great for high-density areas. However, they're not so good for going into the more residential areas, which a good majority of Athens, I'd say, is more of the residential, suburban, smaller streets. You really don't want the larger transit vehicles in those areas just because of the narrow streets and also pedestrian traffic as well. Once again, you have a high level of pedestrian vehicle incursions, and with these smaller vehicles, we're able to offer an on-demand service model, also called microtransit in some circles, where that personalized, easy access, quick access to transit services can be provided through a almost a less intimidating model versus going out to your nearest bus stop and having to wait on the fixed route bus, which may or may not be near by your origin. And so if you're having to, brave areas with no sidewalks or maybe no pedestrian infrastructure, those are all barriers to transit. So the microtransit concept is basically bringing transit to the doorsteps of the residents versus the residents to the doors of transit. And I guess also to add to that, the remote transfer facilities, what they will do, they will just allow us to depart from the centralized transit system that we have now, where I am is a multimodal transfer facility downtown behind the Classic Center, where all of our routes except for the 22, 12, and 14, and also the 23 come to hourly to make the transfers. In the future, we may still have, we likely will have heavy duty buses still. However, in order to get into the further reaches, we need something a little bit more ductile, to get into the ancillary streets.
So would the transfer stations allow you to potentially increase frequency if there were buses and personnel available?
Yes, absolutely. With the proper operational funds, we are able to increase our frequency. That's one of the things that stops us from expanding our service headways, which are the amount of times per hour the bus will serve a stop, is the lack of operational funds to hire the personnel needed to provide the type of service.
I can keep going, but I want to make sure that other members of the committee have a chance to ask any questions they have. So the transfer stations show up in our documents like the corridor study for Atlanta Highway and Lexington. Is there any one of these transfer stations or locations that you have identified as highest priority above all the others?
Well, they they're all they all have their own priorities based in their own right. I would say that it's sort of a split thing. I would say also from a personal standpoint and also from a professional standpoint, the Southeast Clark Park location is probably in greatest need of a remote transfer facility. That's just because we have a large portion of the county that sits south of that area unserved by transit. Also further out to the east down Lexington Road, south towards with Davis Partners Hills area. I think that area would be the best served by a remote transfer facility if we had to select only one.
Pat, did you want to chime in? I thought I saw your hand go up.
I did. I just wanted to add something. Hi, everybody. I'm Pat Hale. I'm the Interim Director for Athens-Clarke County Transit. And I just wanted to add that one of my pet peeves, because I've been here for like 35 years, is every bus has to come back downtown to transfer. So one of the things that we had talked about was if you get those transfer centers, then what we can do is that definitely increases our frequency and it allows us to go further out. Like, for instance, on the east side, if you think about number 26 and number 27, those buses that have to go all the way back downtown, instead of having to go back downtown, they could connect right there. And they could go out to Barnett Show School where there is no service and come back to that transfer center, connect with the buses going back downtown if need be. So just wanted to add that. So it would definitely increase our frequency. I just want to add that into, to what Victor was saying. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pat. We appreciate you chiming in there. And the multimodal center, is that the TSPLOST 2005, 2000 that was funded?
Keith, I'll leave that to you, but it is a SPLOST funded project, and I want to say it was 2003, maybe.
It was 2000, I believe, and probably there was some portion in the 94 SPLOST, but the main portion of the building was in the SPLOST 2000, and it went operational in 2005.
Okay, just to give folks some perspective on the difference between our multimodal center, which is still shiny and new looking, and our this facility that y'all have proposed. Teresa, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Regarding expanding transit, am I correct that every bus line in Athens runs on a loop from and to that multimodal transit center, or from and to that Pound Street location?
Most do run to the transfer center downtown. However, there are a couple of outliers. You have Route 12, Riverbend Parkway, Route 14, Lakeside Drive, Route 23, which is the Park and Ride Express, and Route 22, which is the East Side Connector circulator route.
So my question is, couldn't you run like like a distributed type system where you would have different circular routes, but they didn't have to go back to home base until the end of the day?
Yes, absolutely. And that is sort of the model closely related to microtransit. We are interested in getting away from the circular routes, all returning back to the centralized location. However, the way the system's designed, it's a cohesive unit. So if you change one route, really it affects the entire transit ecosystem. So it's got to be a comprehensive collaborative approach.
Okay, thank you.
Pat, you had another comment?
I do. I just wanted to say that anytime you change anything, I understand what Teresa's saying, but one of the issues is every time you change something with transit the way it is right now due to funding, it's a domino effect. You can't move one pig without moving the other. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Pat. Additional questions from the committee? I had one and I lost it. Where did it go? I'll remember in a moment.
Lauren,
Yes.
this project just seems so, not overwhelmingly, but just, brilliantly comprehensive. I'm imagining a bond referendum. And I'm speaking out of school here because I'm not very knowledgeable in this area, but I am knowledgeable in the healthcare area where, it's just time for a new hospital. Is there any, for anybody out there, is there any argument for looking at a bond referendum to really completely existentially reimagine transportation infrastructure, climate reality issues related to how hard you all are clearly looking at, a new paradigm almost?
There have been conversations had about maybe using a bond to make the infrastructure upgrades to transit. However, I think the spirit may have been to see what the appetite might have been first through referendums such as TSPLOST. I don't really want to speak too much for our elected officials as we have not had that conversation, but I think through the engagement through the TSPLOST program, that will eventually drive the bond service if necessary in time.
Thank you.
Madeline, the one thing about every bond is it has to be paid back. So I'm not trying to be flippant. That is the question really. So where does then the revenue come to pay back that bond? And so if it's coming from TSPLOST, then it would be part of this program and this project. And yes, we could sell general obligation bonds if that was to build it faster, but it's still ultimately getting paid out of TSPLOST.
Right.
There are revenue bonds available, but the transit system doesn't have a particularly with the fare free options that we're looking at right now, there's not a revenue source that would allow the repayment of those bonds if it was a revenue bond.
Right. Thank you. It just seems so globally comprehensive, a dream.
I remember my question, but I want to make sure that Dawn gets hers asked and answered. So Dawn?
Thanks, Lauren. Maybe I'll steal your thunder. It says in the budget that there's 3.5 million for federal grant and 4.3 million from a state grant. Are those set? It's all ready to go, and you've got to come up with this matching?
We're able to leverage any funds that we collect through local processes, whether that be through an award through TSPLOST or otherwise, and leverage those through a competitive grant process. The grant that we would pursue would be a Federal Transportation Administration Program 5339 bus and bus facilities grant, which would give us the option, if we are awarded the funding opportunity, to offset our project cost by up to 80% through the use of federal funds. If GDOT does participate, we may be able to take that all the way up to maybe 90%. So the federal grant opportunities are out there, and one of the things that I would like to tell the group, I think I mentioned this before, but we're asking for the full project cost in the anticipation of being able to get a federal grant to reduce the project cost overall, but in light that those grant opportunities may not be available at that time, we would still like to be able to proceed.
And I would like to say, if we do not have a local match, the 10% local match, we will not be able to apply for the grants that give us up to 80%, federal contribution.
So, okay, just so I understand, so potentially, if this is approved and the grants are available and you can apply, you may not even use the full amount that you're asking for.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could add, that has happened with transit at least once. I know in the TSPLOST 2005 program, they had put in to purchase 16, I want to say 16 buses. I could be wrong about that number, but anyway, because of all the grants, once we finished purchasing the buses that were a part of that program, there was $1 million left over in that project. So that allowed that $1 million to be reallocated to another project, which is something Mayor and Commission can do.
Yeah, with those grants, we get a lot of bang for our buck with dollars going to transit. Absolutely. I think we are at time for this project. So coming up next is project number, let me make sure I remember what one. Yes. Project number 27, transit operations. And who is presenting this one? Who's driving the big bus?
That's gonna be me, Pat Hale.
All right, Pat.
All right. So are you gonna drive?
Do you need me to do the presentation, or are you going to do it?
Victor's gonna. Well, I tell you what, Keith, you wanna join in with me? I'll start us out, and then I'll hand it over to you. How about that?
No, I meant just the slides, just advancing.
Oh, I was gonna say, man, you can drive out. Go ahead, you can drive for me. Thank you.
Victor, can you enlarge that? Because it's pretty small on our screens.
I can't see it at all.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh. Something's wrong. Do you understand? Something's wrong, Keith. I can't see anything on my side. It's just a black screen. I don't know what's going on.
Well, I tell you what, let me see if I can. Don't get cut off.
Victor, can you pull it up? Can you drive?
How about that, Pat? Can you see that?
No, nothing. Okay, now there's it. I got it. Got it.
Just say next when you want me to go to the next slide.
Okay, I will. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about this project, everybody. Thank you so much. Again, I'm Pat Hill. I'm the Interim Director for Athens-Clarke County Transit. The intent of this project is to take a proactive stance to securing an alternative funding source for ACC Transit through 1% sales tax and for local match. Our intent is to reduce the general fund contribution while reducing the economic impact to local residents while enhancing transit options. Next slide, please. As this slide says, ACC is seeking to fund its operations and maintenance functions and personnel through TSPLOST. And just as I mentioned earlier, this would reduce the reliance of general fund contribution and also reduce taxpayer burden. Next slide, please. As you can see, if you looked at on this sheet, it shows that in 2017, you can see how on one side, this talks about the general fund contribution. And as you can see, it keeps growing. It goes up and down, but it was highest in 2017. But if you look to the right side of the screen, you'll see how it fluctuates as far as how much we get from the federal government. As you can see, in 2020, the largest contribution was due to CARES Act funding due to COVID. So that's the driving force. So that's one of the main reasons. If you remember anything else from this takeaway would be that you can see that it's growing from Athens-Clarke County contributions and general fund. And you see what's happening over here. It goes up and down. So we don't want to continue to rely on these funds because we know that you just don't know exactly how much you'll get. Next slide, please. It meets economic prosperity, of course, because if we can do this, this allows us to do something that Ms. Teresa said in the last, she asked about what we could do. This allows us to provide that frequency and change our routes. Economic prosperity means, think about it. That means that people can get to work. It increases jobs, social well-being, just being able to get outside and just catch the bus and go somewhere, especially for independents. Pat passengers with disabilities. Also, environment, we're using electric vehicles. We're going to electric vehicles, and also we have hybrid buses right now. Next slide, please. CARES Act funding, again, this goes back to that chart that I showed you earlier. And this is the one where we talk about how you see the increase in 2020. Yeah, we got quite a bit of funding for CARES Act, but that's gone away. We can't count on that anymore. We won't see that type of funding. This year, CARES Act funding allowed us to use federal funds for operating, and that's unusual. Normally, with federal funding is separated. You get so much for operating, you have so much for capital, and usually you don't get that much funding for operating. This was the first year, and I think we are so thankful to the federal government because they did help us out a lot. We wouldn't have made it through COVID without the CARES Act. Pandemic level ridership decreased, federal funding sources, yes it did. But however, it did, one of the things, it did decrease federal funding. So this year, one of the things that I will point out to that is in order to keep our funds coming in for the next year, we're using 2019 funds to apply for our federal grant because, for our NTD, excuse me, because the 2020 numbers were so low. Fare-free transit triggered change in how funding STIC is allocated. This is one issue that transit is facing this year. We've always had a beautiful relationship with UGA. Everything's going great, but fare-free transit caused one impact at the UGA portion that we usually use to operate our current service. Everybody else went free, so UGA wants to go free as well. If UGA goes free, that means that they actually provide their numbers in the NTD report, which allows us to get STIC funding. If when they put their STIC, when they add their numbers to the STIC funds, this allows us to use that funding to provide service on the streets. Well, this year everybody went free, so they said they want to go free too. So that means that they want their portion of the STIC, which is $828,000. So they're asking for those funds back because they had to return their fares back to their students. They had to send give those fares back. Next slide, please. Jointly, ACC Transit and UGA meet all criteria needed for STIC funds. STIC funds, just I don't see that written out, but just so everybody knows, that is, yeah, it is there. Small transit intensive cities. So in order to qualify for these funds, we need UGA numbers and transit numbers. So what UGA is asking for is not wrong. They're right. They should. We should be providing them. They should get their rides for free as well as everybody else because they're living in the city as well. So what we're trying to do is make sure if we have to provide that service to UGA using that $828,000, we need another funding source in order to put that money back into our budget. Next slide. This just shows how the money comes into the pot. Next slide. Okay, so why improve the SPLOST funding? Reduce the transit reliance on general fund. As I said before, if we can provide the funding for federal match required for competitive grants, this will allow us to not rely on general fund. It also reduces the impact on local residents. Reduces local tax burden by including sales tax paid by visitors, provides additional revenue for other departments within the local government, and provide additional funds for employee retention. Support fair, equitable access to transit services and amenities throughout Athens-Clarke County. Thank you so much. And that is my last slide. Open for questions.
Thank you so much, Pat. I have some questions, but I want to make sure the committee gets their questions answered first, starting with Sarah.
Hi, thank you so much for being here, Pat.
No problem.
I am wondering if this project is necessary for the continuance of fare-free transit, or if this project was not approved, if that would endanger the existence of fare-free transit as we have it now.
I don't think it would stop fare-free transit, no. But we definitely need to figure out a way to get that funding source back. That 828,000 that we talked about in stick funds, that's gonna cause us to have to reduce service somewhere. So if we can't figure out a way to put that funding back into the budget every year, then that could impact service. But no, would it stop fare-free? No.
Okay, so it's not endangering fare free, but it is if you could get this money, it would stop fare free from endangering the availability of services.
Yes, because it would mean we would have to probably cut some service from UGA because the amount of service that we provide over there is quite a bit, and that's something we don't want to do. That's not the direction we want to go in because, I mean, they did put their numbers in for still. We just got to figure out a way to fund it now because we can't give them a credit like we used to.
Thank you.
Daryl.
Yes, how you doing, Miss Pat?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. My question is, what is the state putting into this? I mean, I hear federal, I hear general fund. What money is the state putting towards this? I haven't heard nothing come from anything saying any money come from the state, and they have a surplus now.
I know, but we don't get any funds from state.
Well, we need to find out how you're supposed to get some then.
I tell you what, you let me know. Victor, can you speak to that one?
Yes, sir. The state of Georgia is one of the few states in the union that does not provide for public transportation. In all fairness, Georgia did provide some funding through the SRTA for the hybrid electric buses that we did partner with the TSPLOST funding previously mentioned by Keith to purchase. However, as a whole, operationally, they do not provide any funding for transportation in the state.
So that means that all of us need to contact our state representatives to make sure that we get that some money is validated for our transportation in our cities, because that seems that this is not right. That the people, if they either going to get it free or they got to pay a fare. So you trying to give it free, but they still got to put the money in to make it run. So we think that we should be asking the state for some of this money to help out with transportation. And that is statewide, not just our city, but statewide. I think I regress from here.
Yes, sir.
We totally agree. Thank you.
Ditto, Daryl. 100%. 100%. Yeah, Georgia, one of, I think, only 4 states that does not provide any operations funding. On stack, we'll go with Patrina.
Hey, I noticed that this is sort of thing on reducing the general fund burden, but there's also a lot of sort of, I call it maybe naysayers that are against actually the 1% tax. How do you speak to sort of those that are against the 1% sales tax?
Well, what I would say, Katrina, is that 1% sales tax is not, think about this, how many people need service. I think you've watched a lot of these TSPLOST presentations, and it's just amazing to me that how many people need transit. And do we want to wait until it's in our front yard before we do something about it, till you get to the point where you really need transit or your grandmother needs transit? I mean, it's so much that this can do. I could go on and on because I'm passionate about transit. But until people realize, I remember talking to you for a little bit and just realizing how valuable transit is to you. So, and I rode the bus for many years myself. I used to ride the bus every day. And I understand firsthand how important it is to have transportation. Everybody can't drive. I talked to a young lady at one point and I would say, you know what? How come you don't have a car? And she said, Pat, let me tell you something. You know why I don't have a car? Because I can't maintain a car. So I can get a car, but I can't maintain it. I can't afford the tag every year. I can't afford the insurance every year. I can't afford the maintenance. So I think it's unfortunate that people have to, it's got to hit you in the face, or somebody close to you need it before you realize, gosh, I should have voted for this.
Yeah, to provide some perspective there, SPLOST versus property taxes, what SPLOST allow us to do is to allows people who visit Athens-Clarke County and use our roads to participate in funding our infrastructure versus property owners and renters through them. So that's what, you know, there's some trade-offs there. Yeah. So who's next? Is there anyone who has their hand up who doesn't mean to have their hand up? Okay, Daryl, go right ahead.
This is my other question to the point that you just said. You said that they would have to cut out routes. Whose routes gonna get cut out?
Well, there's no plan to cut any routes right now. That's the whole thing. We don't want to even go there. I don't want to have to cut anything.
I know,
That's
but
why
you put that in the air. So I'm asking, who's gonna get cut if the money don't come through?
Well, we don't plan to cut anybody.
I
That's not the point. That is never the plan.
In the air, I had to ask the question.
I know, but that is never the plan. What last thing we want to do is cut service, because we
I know that.
Our whole thing is to provide transit for everyone.
I agree, 100%.
Keith, you have your hand up, and also Keith, can you remind me how much time we have left, because I forgot to write that down for this presentation.
So yes, I did have my hand up. We have actually count 11 minutes. No, I wrote the time down, but I wrote the wrong time. So I wrote we started at 8:03, but I know we've been talking about this more than 14 minutes. I just wanted to answer Jeff's question because it is a very important question about capital versus operations. So TSPLOST does have a provision, and it's in the description that we have for transportation purposes that allows for services necessary to provide access to the facilities. So that I won't say it's a gray area. I mean, it's not clearly defined that transportation purposes is to pay for operational expenses, but it is written in there that it allows to pay for those services to access. So particularly by providing the fare-free opportunity and expanding route with this funding, it is certainly expanding and allowing the free access of access to these services and facilities that are part of the transportation. So that's how we believe that it does meet the definition under TSPLOST, which is totally different than what's allowed under SPLOST, just regular SPLOST. Regular SPLOST is real clear, no operational expenses whatsoever, but TSPLOST is written differently.
Thank you, Keith. Appreciate you chiming in there. So I did have a question, and I hope this doesn't get into the weeds too much, but I thought that Athens Transit was the designated recipient of federal transit dollars, and that UGA, like, they don't get to have that money. They have to get it through us, and we use their ridership numbers. I'm confused.
Well,
go ahead. I'll let you handle that one.
And I will say, if this is too much in the weeds, you can answer this in an email. That's totally fine.
Long answer short, you are absolutely correct. We are the designated federal recipient for federal transportation dollars here for the Athens-Clarke County urbanized area. However, UGA uses 5339 capital grants. For example, they used that capital grant to acquire some of the battery electric buses that they currently operate. The federal funds come to Athens-Clarke County as a pass-through, but we're not touching them or anything. Part of that whole entire process is that they then are required to report to the National Transit Database, NTD. It's a cuss word around transit people, so don't ever say it. They're required to report to that every year, their ridership stats. And that affects the funding that's allocated to our urban area. over the years, the Federal Transit Administration has started to push away from the typical allotments that are given through, and this is the 5307 grant, which is what we apply for every year to fund the services that everyone sees on the streets. They're using the ridership numbers to determine the apportionment for each urbanized area. And UGA typically has about it's about 5 times higher ridership than we do. I think last year they transported somewhere around 11,000, and we only did about 2 million. 11 million, and we only did 2 million. So there's a significant difference, and EGA does feel that they are entitled to some of the federal funds that come to the area, which, that also takes away the amount of funds that are available to operate our transit system. The way that this ties back to the federal or the National Transit Database is that the federal government is removing funds from the allocated amount and putting them in more of a competitive formula, which allocates funds once again through the STIC program, which Pat mentioned earlier.
Okay, I know that was a lot for the committee to follow. I guess the TLDR version is we have 2 transit systems in the smallest county in Georgia, and that creates some opportunities for collaboration, but there's also some competition, and it's rough. And Athens Transit, has done a great job over the years navigating that. But it's complex, and it sounds like UGA wants theirs.
That's it.
Okay. Well, thanks for that information. Good to know as we evaluate this project and along with other projects. Other questions from the committee discussion? All right, y'all. Well, thank you for your 2 presentations. Good to see you, Pat and Derek and Vic.
Good to be here. Thank you all for hearing us. We're excited about all these projects. I'm up next, and Victor.
Oh, great. Oh, okay. I didn't realize. Oh, there's more. Nice. Okay.
Driving, Victor?
Sure. Give me one moment. I'll get everything ready.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I missed that you were.
That's all right.
Yeah. So as we're getting ready, this is project number 28, North Athens Corridor Project. This is Athens Transit System and Central Services Sustainability.
Can we just do that? Okay, I don't see it yet, Victor.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
I can't see it.
Okay, give me 1 sec.
We can see it, Victor.
Okay. Pat, can you see it now?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. 1 moment, Phil. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We can follow.
Okay. You want me to just reload?
Well, hold on. Keith, can you drive from your side? Is Keith still there?
Ask and you shall receive.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'm just gonna open for Victor and then he's gonna take it off. But I just I'm so excited about this project. This is a joint project with TPW, Athens Transit, Leisure Service, and Sustainability. I'm excited about it because this project allows, the intent of this project is to provide safe access to local parks, trails, and social services using eco-friendly vehicles, leading to an eco-friendly lifestyle. Take it, Vic.
Hey, y'all. Y'all get to hear from me again. I just want to leave it off first with a quote. The developed country is not a place where the poor have cars. It's where the rich ride public transportation. And that's what we're about here, is making everyone rich. And part of that is the North Athens Corridor Project. This project has been designed to provide a multifaceted approach to transportation infrastructure throughout the North Corridor of Athens, with focused efforts along Boley Drive, US 441, and North Bluff. Next slide, please. This will provide a comprehensive transportation system consisting of multi-use paths, bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and parking lot facilities to help Athens residents along the northern corridor access employment, social and academic, and health services opportunities. Next slide, please. The North Athens Corridor project is designed to connect the North Athens area with the downtown Athens area, including North Bluff and the North Oconee, the areas along the North Oconee Greenway. We're proposing 8 miles of transit on demand services, also called microtransit, as you may have heard that term mentioned a few times, for direct transit line access and transportation to downtown. We're also looking at land acquisition for the creation of a ride, hike, and bike parking facility near the Sandy Creek Nature Center. Sorry, y'all. To accommodate North Athens multimodal commuters. Next slide, please. The North Athens area corridor primarily consists of people who are predominantly below the federal housing, below the federal poverty line. At least 50% of the households in this area have been identified to fall below the poverty line. The average household in this area near the corridor is 28,000, and then when you start going out a little bit, it drops down to 21,000. Next slide, please. Sorry, y'all, I'm talking a little bit ahead of myself. One more, please, Keith. Okay. And basically what we're proposing is to connect people to the amenities offered elsewhere throughout Athens, whether that be workplace or workforce, family housing, academic resources, health, social opportunities. All these are amenities that we offer to our community. However, the citizens and residents off to the north of Athens have no access due to sidewalk gaps and the lack of public transportation in that area. Next slide, sir. Through the deployment of sidewalks and residents or in areas where high foot traffic exists, we will provide a safe area for residents of the North Athens corridor to travel by foot. As currently there, if you go along 441, you can see a number of trails created by the daily foot traffic up and down 441. And as many of you all know, that's a high-speed roadway, and there are a lot of accidents that are bad for people in cars and even worse for pedestrians. The improved transportation infrastructure along the North Athens corridor will allow us to reduce our dependence on fossil fuel through the offerings made available through Athens Transit by our use of battery electric vehicles, and also, once again, through multimodal transportation solutions, which allow people to park their cars and take the bus. Next slide, please. Once again, the expanded access to the transit route network means that if you're located along the North Athens corridor, you would be able to take the transit bus anywhere that Athens Transit currently serves. And as Athens Transit expands, that expands the area that that the residents along the North Athens area currently are able to access. Next slide, please. The multimodal transit ride, hike, and park facility is designed to be convenient for commuters who are coming into Athens from outside areas, as well as residents who live along the north side corridor and may find issues finding parking in the downtown area or on campus or elsewhere where they may seek to find employment or enjoy social activities. Next slide, please. This makes the strategic goals brought forth by providing or extending transit service to unserved areas throughout Athens. Next slide. Provide equitable access to Athens-Clarke County parks and amenities. Next slide. Connect North Athens residents with Cook's Trail through the use of multi-use pathways and connections to the Athens transit system. Next slide, please. Promote sustainable living through the deployment of zero-emission vehicles and renewable building materials in the multi-use pathways, and also reducing the potential greenhouse gas emissions from commuter traffic. Next slide. It reduces travel times spent in vehicles when entering or exiting the Athens-Clarke County through the north side through the use of transit and multi-use pathways. And also, it also subsequently reduces roadway infrastructure maintenance needed for those roads, which is further cost savings. Next slide, please, sir. This is a continuation of the goal set forth through the 2018 TSPLOST. In 2018, we launched the Route 30 service, which serves the North Athens corridor up North Avenue, Dinglesville Road, Voles Road, Athena Drive, in that area. It's a on-demand service model, which gets approximately 750 trips per month. So it's actually doing very well for a low density route, and in fact, it's exceeded expectations. Next slide, please. Through the comprehensive transportation solution offered in the North Athens Corridor Project, we hope to enhance the quality of life for the residents of North Athens through the increased livability of their community and access to social, academic, and healthcare and economic opportunities, which will allow them to further their life goals. Next slide, please. Once again, we will provide the access to the recreational facilities. I'm sorry, I'm sort of getting ahead of myself. Next slide, please. And also provide transportation services no matter whatever the weather may be. Currently, once again, the footpaths are highly prevalent throughout this area, so that leads us to believe that people in the area are, relying basically on bicycle and sidewalks, in this case no sidewalks, to get to where they need to go. If we can provide a reliable transportation solution in the North Athens corridor, we can also help these people become closer to securing better forms of employment and maybe even improving their social and housing options as well. Next slide, please. Oops, actually, go ahead and go to the slide after, please. The reduction of the addition of multi-use pathways allows Athens residents to utilize the amenities provided by leisure services such as the Cook's Nature Trail, which connects the Nature Center and Sandy Creek Park. We would like to keep these areas beautiful for our future generations, and through reducing runoff from toxic fuels and other fluids brought in with vehicle traffic, we help to minimize any impact to our environment. 2 slides, please. Okay. Actually, the one more slide. I'm sorry, Keith. The last 3 were sort of related. Also, once again, we have another opportunity to interact with nature, and we just really need to preserve our environment as best we can for the future generations and to conserve the resources. As a scout, I was raised up in the woods, and I enjoyed it, and I'd like to see future generations enjoy the same amenities that I have. Let's see, next slide, please, Keith. And once again, to echo what Pat said, this is a collaborative effort between Actually, really, 4 departments. We'll count sustainability in this one as well. They're a real department. It's the sustainability, transportation, public works, leisure services, and transit. And we hope that you've enjoyed our presentation today, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Vic. Daryl did have a question about one of your slides, about one of the markings on it. Daryl, do you want to clarify what you were looking at?
Oh, I was looking at, you had the yellow and black lines. Is that supposed to be like a pathway or
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That is actually future proposed transit routes. I do
Right.
believe. Let
I
me get
see it. I see it now on the grid, but it went so fast I didn't get a chance to read the grid. Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir.
Teresa?
Hi, thanks for this presentation. This is a very interesting and inspired project, so I enjoyed that. I do have a couple questions. One is, how exactly does the on-demand microtransit work?
Well, there are a couple of different ways to deploy this system. In the most basic form, it could be that you would have a resident who could either call, text, or use an app to request a ride. And when they do so, if they are using the app, it would automatically send their GPS location to our database, and it would send the bus that's closest to that person to come pick them up. So basically, it's a concept not foreign from Lyft or Uber. It's just more of a ride share system where you likely will not have a vehicle to yourself. But as far as the on-demand aspect, it's similar to the rideshare concept.
Does it follow a specific route, or is it just anywhere you want to go?
It's anywhere you want to go within a service area. The slide number 3, if you've got it in front of you, sort of identifies a half-mile service radius off of an established route area. So the on-demand transit service would be able to go up to 1/2 mile away from the established route.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. All right, well, that was my most important question for you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pretty cool.
Additional questions? Jennifer? Jennifer, did you have a question? All right, we will come back to Jennifer. John.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Vic. For those of us who haven't yet looked at the detailed submission, but are just looking at the summary, can you give us the breakdown of the cost between buying electric vehicles versus creating multi-use paths for more connectivity?
Let's see. It's sort of a apples to oranges, but I would say that I don't really want to compare them because the funding mechanisms for the two are so potentially different. The cost for acquiring electric vehicles is really, in some ways, significantly cheaper than creating a multi-use path.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused by the summary with a total project cost of 15.4 million, and it says, part of this is funding for electric powered vehicles, and part is for additional multi-use paths. So I'm just wondering, how that 15.4 million, you envision that being divided.
Yes, sir. Let me go through here and find out the exact
If
amount.
that's a dumb question, I apologize.
No. It's fine. I just didn't want to provide inaccurate information for you right now. Let me do some research and I can get back to you. I can send an email to either you or directly or Lauren. I can follow up with that for you.
Victor, this is Mike Wharton. I might be able to help a little bit. We
Sure.
typically look at trails, multi-use trails at about 1.5 million a mile. And Victor, am I correct? The vehicles are around what, a million? That's where you got that number.
Yes,
How much are
sir.
the electric?
Depending on which one we're talking about, a heavy duty bus is about $875,000 for a battery electric bus. Our smaller vans, the electric versions, are about 275.
And so how many miles then of multi-use trail here does this represent?
I would like to say it's about 2.6, if I'm remembering correctly. I'll call that up from our summary page on the, I believe that's added into the summary page for the write-up.
Yeah,
Let me
okay.
flip over again.
If you could bring up the project
1.8.
page, the presentation, we could look at the map too, that could help.
2.6 total, and 60 linear feet sidewalk.
And then the park
So-
and the park ride and hike, park bike and hike area is also included in that.
In this map right here, the purple lines, you could see it would go along Boley Drive, connecting in North Avenue, which is a different project we have going on, and then it would go over into Greenway, and tie straight into the Greenway, not through Nature Center property, but on conservation property, the Greenway that Leisure Services manages.
There is a second spur that goes from North Bluff to the Nature Center, because right now, if you're in North Bluff, you have to cross a 5-lane highway with 55 plus speeds. It's a little bit like Frogger.
Yeah.
Another big cost is the traffic signal at 441 and Old Commerce. The Georgia Department of Transportation will not put one in unless you have a certain amount of deaths and serious wrecks, and we haven't reached that threshold. We haven't killed enough people yet. However, if we pay for it, they will maintain it, and the cost is around $250,000 just for that traffic light and the ramp areas and pedestrian lights that go with it.
Okay, thanks, guys.
So there are 2 other TSPLOST projects that are kind of mentioned in concert with this project. You mentioned Cook's Trail, which we heard from the Greenway Commission about last night. So Cook's Trail exists, but it's, under disrepair, or, needs SPLOST funding or something to repair it. And then you also mentioned North Avenue, which we have put in a raise grant for. And there's also, there's a separate TSPLOST project for that too. Is that right, Daniel?
It's for the bridge itself, not
Okay, I
for the
see.
multi-use path. But the raise grant has been, we'll find out in November whether we were awarded that grant or not.
That's a different pot, right?
Yes, that's a federal grant, infrastructure grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation.
And so where the significance of that is for the committee is that's $25 million that would basically redo all of North Avenue, put in a multi-use path, replace 2 bridges, one along the North Oconee, and then that double bridge over the loop that doesn't have any sidewalks or anything like that. So that's kind of what it sounds like this project is tying into a little bit.
To be clear, it's not replacing the loop bridge. It would build an additional pedestrian bridge over the loop. No problem. And then it ties a multi-use path from there to existing multi-use trail, which there's a small segment on the north side of this, but this Boley Drive basically would come in at the end of that project and they could connect up directly.
Andrea has a clarifying question about the bridge. Daniel, she says pedestrian bridge, not multi-use. It would be a multi-use path bridge.
Yes, yeah, pedestrian bridges are typically always multi-use. Just no motorized vehicles. So that's what we mean by pedestrian bridge, just that not going to have cars on there.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking that.
Yeah. So to be clear, just to summarize this for folks who are watching, this project, because there's a lot in here, there's a transit route component to it, and there's operations associated with that. There's a multi-use path component to this, 2.6 miles of multi-use path. And then there's 600 linear feet of sidewalk, and then using native plants to restore habitat. So this is really like a holistic look at this corridor. Anything I left out?
The park bike hike facility is designed to catch commuters coming in from the north, as well as serving the public to want to connect to these areas. And one of the cool things about that is because it intersects with the transit and the multi-use paths, if you want to go for example, if you want to take the bus to downtown to work and then you want to ride your bike home, you can. Or if you ride your bike into work and you suddenly realize it's raining, now you can take the bus back to the parking area and stay dry. So it really provides you with a lot of options to link these facilities up with that kind of inclement weather. Or you'll now be able to travel over to North Avenue and take care of those social services. And if you get over there and you find that you're being rained out, you've gone to the pharmacy and it's raining outside, well, you don't have to get wet going back. You just call transit, that microservice comes and carries you back and you stay dry. So we saw this as a way of kind of really addressing a lot of different needs in the community.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. Questions from the committee? Discussion? Jennifer.
So since this is such a complicated project and there are definitely components that are would traditionally fall under certain divisions, whose ultimate responsibility is it for making sure that it all gets done, since it will take a lot of coordination and collaboration? And
That's a great question. I'd like to sort of lead off with it. The rest, I'm sure I might need you to add in a little bit. For the most part, Central Services handles most of our facility and amenity maintenance issues. Transit, for ourselves, we do maintenance on our bus stops, such as general cleaning and also emptying of trash cans. Leisure Services, I know as well, they do general maintenance on their facilities as well. Daniel, would you like to add anything as far as the maintenance goes?
Yeah, as far as maintenance goes, Leisure Services has their operations that they've looked at on this. They do trail inspections monthly. Those would be for the sections that are off-road. All of the on-road sections would be Transportation Public Works. We don't have additional operations on that because we don't have staff that do regular inspections. We kind of rely on reporting. As far as making sure all of it gets built, I think if you're talking more from a project management standpoint, that would be, I believe, the TSPLOST office, kind of coordinating between all of the departments. So you have kind of this part of the money, and then we go through multiple rounds of public input for all the different sub projects, and it would be a lot to kind of manage, but I think Keith has a pretty good handle on that.
Yeah, we're gonna put it all on Keith. Ready, Keith.
Keith, are
He
you
can-
okay with it?
He's really good at herding cats.
Absolutely, bring it on.
Okay, thank you for answering that.
Any other
I know-
questions?
I think Gerald had a question about how long it would take to get from maybe, I guess, a point out here on 441 North to, let's say, crosstown. We're looking at travel times under 45 minutes. Currently, if you were to hop on our proposed bus at Cook's Trail Corridor, like out here by North Bluff, you could potentially get downtown within 15 minutes and then be on our Route 20 and out to the mall area within 45 minutes. As we work to improve our transportation system and employ more microtransit and higher speed express routes, that could be reduced.
Thank you for that, Vic. Well, thank y'all for your presentation. I have to say, I'm really excited about the holistic way that you looked at this corridor and its transportation issues. I wonder if, the residents of Athens would be really responsive to this approach to TSPLOST projects where they can identify with the neighborhood versus trying to figure out what facilities they need or infrastructure and whatnot. Because unfortunately, like the way we've done things in the past, where we have like our bike lanes and our transit stops and our sidewalks, is we end up with these beautiful bus stops, and then there's not a sidewalk connecting them to a nearby sidewalk or something like that. So they end up being isolated. So that's why I really appreciate the way that y'all have collaborated here and thought about it in terms of a big picture. And I don't know what that means for whether it will be funded or not. I just, I think it's a great approach. And thank you for this. Okay, well, have a good night.
Thank you all.
See y'all.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks,
We
guys.
have one more tonight.
So much.
One more time. Next up is project number 91, Lavender Road Sidewalk. And do we have Christine Weiss in the house?
Yes.
Welcome.
Y'all were all saying good night to each other and y'all are all about to hang up on me. I was like, wait.
We are still here.
Well, thank y'all so much for still being here. I know y'all have had a long day, so I'll try to get through this as short and sweet as possible. I have to share my screen. Do y'all see it?
Yes. We see your desktop.
Okay, wait a second. My computer's gonna be slow.
It's all right.
Christine, I can show it if you would like, and you can just tell me when to advance if that works for you.
That would be awesome.
Sure.
Actually, that would be great.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, so my name is Christine Bice. I work for Family Connection Communities and Schools as the neighborhood leader for the Whitehead Zone. And so this part of my job is to facilitate community engagement and engagement in political processes. So I talk to a lot of people in my area, and I live on Whitehead Road, so I don't live on Lavender Road, but I interact with folks very frequently who do live on Lavender Road. And this is sort of a collaboration between me being like the talking head and then what I've seen and heard from others. I've gotten some help from my commissioner. And so it's a Lavender Road Sidewalk project. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm not sure how familiar y'all are with this part of town, but it's on the northwest part of Athens, almost to the Jackson County line. And currently there's no bus service out there. The sidewalk that we are proposing would connect all the way from Tallahassee Road to Jefferson Road. And there is currently some sidewalk there. It's on the very last slide. I wish I put the map up further, but I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term sidewalk interruptus, where you're on a sidewalk and then all of a sudden That's pretty much kind of the situation that's going on here. So the concept of the project is fairly straightforward. We're just wanting to fill in those gaps where there is no sidewalk. Next slide, please. And by doing that, it will, another thing about, so there's no bus service. The sidewalk is interrupted, and if you don't have a car, you're essentially stranded out there. But this project is very forward thinking in that we're looking ahead to the different other projects that are in the pipelines, including the creation of or not the creation, but the building of the Oak Grove Shopping Center. So a lot of this, when it's talking about, it's going to connect to employment, places of employment and food and all that kind of stuff. Those places don't currently exist, but they've already been approved. So they've already been funded and they're coming down the pipelines. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. This is kind of the current situation. So this is not to say we're going to have to wait till everything's built before we're going to see any benefits from this, but there are 3 schools in the area, none of them which are accessible from Lavender Road by sidewalk. However, this project would close that gap and allow people on Lavender Road to access these 3 different schools from pedestrian means. Next slide, please. And then, like I said, even though there's currently no bus service out there, we're trying to kind of, I guess the Athens Transit people have that in their plans, but there are plans to build out to finally make that sort of part of the town accessible. We talk about equal access to community resources. We all know what wonderful community resources Athens has to offer, but when you're out on the outer skirts or anywhere where you don't have transportation, that's kind of those people don't have access to it. And we're really, if our goals are equity and a more unified community, then transportation there's no way around not having the connectivity that transportation and projects like this will allow for. So it will eventually, the bus line will be able to go out there and these people won't be stranded. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. This is what I was talking about, the grocery store. So we're really excited about this because currently there's no gas stations, there's no retail shops, there's not even a corner store there or a gas station there. But this project is underway and it's starting this year, the Oak Grove grocery store. So and also a shopping center. I'm not sure what kind of shops will be there, but almost 50,000 square feet. So that is very exciting for us. And then also the Tallahassee Forest, which is over 300 acres of park and green space, is right close by to Lavender Road. It's only 1,000 feet away, but the only problem is there's no sidewalk, safe way to get to it. Next slide, please. This is talking more about Tallahassee Road Connector and the multi-use trail. So this will also allow for that. Expand to West Transit, West Transit transfer station. I guess if they decide to choose that location, but this is all looking forward still. Next slide, please. So the many benefits, and this kind of speaks to the triple bottom line, but the equity, the equal opportunity for the transportation in terms of jobs. You know, we're always trying to, well, not we, but part of my job is we're trying to address persistent poverty in Athens, generational poverty in Athens. So we're trying to get people employed, but it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. So they don't have transportation, they can't, a reliable transportation, they can't get to a job, they can't hold a job down. They don't have a job, they can't pay for a car, they can't pay for car insurance, they can't pay for a tag. So it is a chicken and egg thing. And this this expansion of transportation and connectivity will help bridge that gap as well. The safety, as I said, is sort of the sidewalk interruptus type thing. And in the details of the plan, it talks about how they're going to deal with the right of ways, or the how they're going to build that out. It's going to have minimum impact on the environment. There's not going to be, it's going to be a negligible amount of green space that's lost. And economy, again, educational opportunities, job opportunities. When you're stranded somewhere without a car, it's just kind of hard to try to get all that, try to get it into a stable situation. So it's another key benefit. Next slide, please. These are the project costs. I will have to admit, I did have a lot of help with this from my commissioner, who worked with, I guess, the engineers or whoever does this. But if y'all have any questions about that, I would probably have to refer you to someone else. And this is the final. Okay, so here's where you see the proposed sidewalk is the red. And then there's these, it's like somebody started a project on the yellow ones, and then we're just trying to connect them. So, and on the left-hand side, that's the Fallacy Road, the trail, and the nature preserve. And then on the right hand side on Jefferson Road, that's where the grocery store and all that stuff's going to be. So that's about it. Did I make it under 10 minutes, or did I go over?
You went a minute over. That's fine. Who's counting?
I'm sorry.
You're
Thank
good.
you very much.
Thank you, Christine. Questions for Christine about the Lavender Road sidewalk? And Lavender Road is in the Athens in Motion plan as a Tier 3 project for pedestrian facilities. I have a question that maybe staff can answer. So the Tallahassee Road multi-use path says SPLOST 2020 project. Do we have any idea where that is in terms of priorities for construction, Keith? Like, is it going to be in 3 years, 5 years, towards the end of the program?
Give me just a second. I'll look it up.
Sweet, thank you. John, go ahead.
Yeah, so those two little bits of yellow existing sidewalk are almost comical. I mean, what's the story with those?
So those are, I think one of them is right in front of Monsignor Donovan, and the other one is in front of a kind of wealthier, more prominent neighborhood. I don't know if, I think I forgot to mention, this is a primarily low-income working class neighborhood.
Right. Yeah, I'm slightly familiar with the neighborhood. Yeah, I mean, those are, clearly sidewalks to nowhere as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the sidewalk improvement program, though, that was put in place probably 15, 20 years ago, where when properties are developed, they have
Right.
to provide sidewalks on their road frontage. And
Right.
the thought being that eventually, as properties were developed, they would ultimately all connect, and then the city or county could go back and fill in small gaps.
Right.
Hmm.
As we're now like being asked to do, right? Yeah,
Right.
thanks. Yeah, thanks, Christine and Keith.
Frank?
Yeah, I'm just curious as to when the shopping center and grocery store is built, is that going to create a bigger traffic problem on the Lavender Road where people don't want to go back out onto Jefferson Road? I just wonder if that's going to create a problem, which would justify more connecting those sidewalks, I would think, too.
I think that's kind of the idea, is that a lot that the people that live in that area will also be working at those places, at those businesses. So it'll take pressure off of the roadways, and not wear them out as much, and not, have as much air pollution and stuff like that. So that's one of the main things, is to try to have a safe way for people to walk, not only to frequent those businesses, but also to work there.
Yes.
Dawn in the chat was wondering how many households would benefit, do you estimate, along this area? Any idea?
I wish I had that number in front of me, and I was trying to scramble to look at the census tracts, but I could not. I didn't get it in time. But there are 5 neighborhoods out there. I could get that information and get back with y'all.
Thank you. And 3 schools along here. That's a lot.
Yeah, and Whitehead Road is the biggest elementary school it's over 700 students.
So Keith did respond to my question. The Tallahassee Connector project is funded in 2031, but it's funded. Teresa.
What is the Tallahassee Connector?
The Tallahassee Connector.
I can answer that if you like.
Somebody else help me with that
Yeah.
one. Sorry.
So I believe it was the 2020 SPLOST, Bike Athens. Yep. Tallahassee Connector shared use path. Bike Athens put that forward, and it was funded, and I believe it's $4 million to fund a multi-use path connection, and the entire multi-use path wouldn't be built with that initial funding. I don't think we would be able to do that, but the scope of project is from 3 Oaks Drive all the way down to the help me out here, Mitchell Bridge Road, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. It wouldn't fund all of it. It was a little about 2.8 million.
Yeah, we've actually, as part of the Tallahassee roadway safety audit, which I'm currently working on, we are identifying some of the areas where there's higher just pedestrian counts existing, and that way we can know where we want to focus that effort. But with it being funded in 2031, hopefully, I'm not sure what the cost of multi-use path will be by then, but
Daniel, don't say that.
Where's the end point? I can't seem to find it on my map here. I know what Mitchell Bridge is, but what is the other?
3 Oaks Drive is almost to the county line. It's the last neighborhood on.
Okay.
And this passes by Bernie Harris Lyons, so this sidewalk would connect. Basically, once it connects to Tallahassee, it would connect into all of that. And we are looking also at intersection. We identify the need for intersection improvements at Lavender and Tallahassee as part of the roadway safety audit as well. So.
Yeah, that's a very, very dangerous in that bridge, and we do see people. I do see people walking down to Golden Pantry, because that's the closest food they can get to, is walking all the way from Lavender down to like the bypass there.
Mm-hmm.
And I will have to admit, Lauren posted the link to the project in the chat, and that alerted me to there is an error on that sheet. The budget on that page does say 4 million, so Daniel, but the actual budget is 2.8 million.
Oh, okay.
The 4.4 million was submitted and 2.8 is what got approved.
Got it.
So I need to make that correction.
Okay. Thank you for pointing that out, Keith. Additional questions, discussion about Lavender Road sidewalks? I've definitely walked on this road, in the road before, as a teen.
Mhm. It's dangerous in the car, even. So windy.
Christine, I had to miss a few minutes of your presentation. I hate that because you're talking about my woods, but I was able to watch you all talk, and I was taken by the lavender room. Was that a purposeful backdrop for your presentation tonight?
Yes, I spent all day painting my room.
It's working.
Subliminal, like, yeah.
Nicely done. Okay, Christine. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Thanks for hanging around so late.
Oh, thank you guys. Y'all are awesome. It's wonderful that y'all can actually have the power to put these principles of unity and equity into something that's concrete. That is a stupid pun that I didn't think about earlier.
Perfect. Yeah. A lot of concrete. And thank you for your comments.
All right, guys. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Keith, did you want to really quickly review our remaining schedule? I think we had that on the agenda. We do. Keith, cannot hear you.
That's because I finally muted. If we hadn't been so close to end time, I just really wanted to. We've got 3 more nights of presentations listed on the agenda there. Tomorrow, Derek will be with you, so be kind to him. I'll be back with you next week, and then the following that we'll have the discussions on the alternates. So, and then we'll follow that with voting. So, just kind of wanted to touch base on those, and see if anybody had any questions about the schedule that was coming up, and if not, then I really didn't have anything to present. I just wanted to refresh everybody's memory.
Did we ever get an updated schedule? I feel like I'm still looking at an old one from August.
I sure hope that was sent out, but I can certainly forward the one to you that we sent to Mayor Commission.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That will help. And committee members, after presentations, we do still have meetings and whatnot. It just gets to be a little bit better, but once we'll have some straw polling, and then we'll ultimately need to promote the TSPLOST project list. So all that's coming down.
Yeah, I guess that may, if I was going to touch on anything, is just to remember, that after the presentations, that's so intense that you'll have that kind of letdown of it, but there's still a long way left to go. And it's not too early, Lauren, if you wanted to, you have a November work session, the Mayor and Commission, for a presentation of your first round of voting results. Now, I know you won't have those results, but just that work session will come quick. So you might, I don't know, I think other groups have developed some subcommittees that have put together the presentations, or you yourself can put the presentation together. Or, if you want to find help, but generally we don't put the presentation together for the committee. I certainly will offer any assistance we can, but you just might want to start thinking about how you want that to look. You don't know what projects will fill in the gaps, but you might have some background just to get started.
And
Yeah,
I asked for a list of the calendar dates, and it looks like this is the last scheduled Tuesday, Thursday date. So we
That
should
is
be
correct.
just regular.
That is correct. So you got Wednesday, next week is just Monday and Wednesday. And then we're back to just regular Monday and Wednesday, unless y'all decide to add any extra meetings to talk about and discuss projects.
right, right. And we haven't had any general discussion about all of the projects,
Right.
or as holistically, so might want to think about that. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow night, same time, same place. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Right.